Chapter 1. For the Future. The past has been there all along, reminding us. This time maybe, hopefully, against all odds, we will get it right. Leslie T. Chong. It was said that the life expectancy in the shinobi warring states period did not exceed 30 years, for civilians and shinobi alike. Many would point to the constant war and lack of medical research as the cause, but if one were to look deeper, they would find that it was mainly caused by the aberrant militarization of children and their usage as cannon fodders in the battlefield, that in turn led to a spike in their mortality. For the clan heads, it was all but natural. After all, only the strongest shall be deemed worthy to survive into adulthood. That is how it should be. That is how it has always been. He fought and died as a full-fledged shinobi. Do not dare disrespect your brother's sacrifice and call him a child. Hashirama Senju could almost hear those words being spoken as he was sitting across an unnamed grave. Passing his hand on the wet soil in front of him, it was as if he was still caressing his dying younger brother's face. Looking at his damp hand, he remembers how bright the color of his blood was. It should not have made any sense. Blood was blood, and yet, he had found it so mesmerizing, like the feeling you get when you are about to wake up from a nasty nightmare. But instead of vanishing, memories of a not-so-distant past begun flooding his head. How many fathers has he seen bury the lifeless body of their child? How many of his teenager friends disappeared in battle, never to come back? How many times has he seen life fade from innocent eyes that have yet to know what life even means as he plunged his sword through their owner's yet to be fully developed body? And all of that in the name of what? Survival? Honor? Fame? Brotherhood? Hashirama once again found himself lost, not finding an answer. But this only serves to strengthen his unshakable belief that the shinobi world was rotten. The fair-haired Senju opened his eyes to the embryo of his dream. Konoha, a place where people of different clans can live in peace, a place where toddlers play with toys instead of kunai and swords, a place where he will honor the promise that he made to his late friend Madara. Yes, this time he will not fail. Still trying to speak to the dead, brother? What tales do they tell? A deep voice came from behind. One of misery and dread. I have been thinking about Itama, and all those that shared his fate, as Hashirama said that Tobarama's usually stoic face noticeably distorted with anguish. Tell me, Tobarama, can we really change this rotten world? Or is it destined to be this way? Contemplating his brother's question, Tobarama thought for a moment before answering. I don't know about the world, brother, but maybe we can begin with Konoha. Tobarama's words must have reached his brother's heart as he gets up with a newfound resolve. Then let us be on our way. Hashirama turned towards his brother, and with a nod, he calmly walked past him. No words were spoken, yet both men knew their destination and purpose. Walking through the village they built, receiving multiple greetings, nods of recognition, Hashirama and Tobarama could not help but feel a speck of pride. Were they really the ones that spawned this serene atmosphere? Confidence fills them as they now feel that no task shall be too hard, no mountain shall be too great, and no storm could extinguish their will of fire, for they will give their all and beyond to protect this beacon of light in a world devoid of it. Upon reaching the small wooden building designated as their temporary headquarters, Hashirama sat on the desk, adopting a thinking position with his elbow on the table, while Tobarama just leaned on the wall gazing at their masterpiece from the window. Deciding to break the comfortable silence, Tobarama spoke up. So, what are you thinking about, brother? Thinking for a moment while shifting his position, Hashirama declares, I've thought about creating a place where children could be trained to become shinobi. Turning his head to his brother with risen eyebrows, Tobarama said, I thought you hated the fact that kids were being made into killing machines? Don't get me wrong, Hashirama retorted with a shrug to my dismay. The world has yet to become the peaceful place I dream it will one day be, and Konoha needs to be defended by powerful shinobi. You were the first one to tell me, if you want peace you have to prepare for war. I understand that, but, Tobarama says while skeptically squinting his eyes, how exactly would that be any different from before? Won't children still go and risk their lives on the battlefield or some mission for the village? Meeting his brother's gaze with determined eyes, Hashirama confidently retorts, I said they were to be trained, yet I never mentioned anything about when will their training end. You see, I plan on having them being formed into the ninja ways until they reach adulthood, where they will graduate from multiple trials to see if they are ready to join the shinobi force. If they are found to be prepared, they will become full-fledged ninjas of Konoha. If they fail, on the other hand, they would have to choose between trying again next year or becoming civilians. With a somewhat downcast sigh and a shake of his head, Tobirama tries to refute his occasionally too optimistic brother. I will always be of the opinion that we should build a peaceful world where children don't have to die for some bickering lord's petty disputes, but the protection of those we are responsible of, whether it is our family, our clan, or Konoha, will always be the utmost priority for me. If we delay the formation of new shinobi by that long of a time period, we will have a considerable manpower disadvantage. Granted, Konoha is, as of right now, considered to be by far the most powerful shinobi organization, whether that is considering the quantity or quality of its troops. But who is to say that one day, other villages won't rise up to challenge us and destroy everything that we have worked so hard to build? Not shaken by his brother's rebuttal, Hashirama gets up and argues while walking, "I've thought about this for a long time, brother, and even though you may be right on the surface, you have to consider this. Konoha's greatest asset lies within its children. We could either rush their development and send them to battle, granting us a temporary advantage in numbers whilst losing considerable amount of them in the process, or we could invest in this asset, training them until adulthood, when they will, hopefully, become a force to be reckoned with. This way, all of those young souls that would have perished on suicide missions would now be good quality shinobis serving Konoha, and in the long term, taking our time to train them might actually give us a considerable edge, even on the numbers side." As he was pondering about his siblings' argument, Tobirama chastised himself for not looking far enough in the future. He then could only agree with his brother that may very well be, but it still stands that Konoha would be weakened for the first few generation of shinobis. Hashirama could not help but let a grin form itself onto his oval face, and that would have been a problem. But did you forget that Konoha is the collection of the most powerful and prominent clans of the Land of Fire? He turns to his white-haired counterpart while enumerating on his fingers Aburame, Akimichi, Hyuga, Inuzuka, Nara, Sarutobi, Yamanaka, and finally the Uchiha and Senju. I doubt any organization or village will have enough power to rival us, at least for the next few decades. And even then, he points his thumb to his heart and takes on a serious expression. I, Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, will not let anyone lay a single finger on Konoha and its people as long as there is a beating heart in this chest of mine. Admiring his brother's determination for a moment, Tobirama closes his eyes while letting out a snicker. HMPF, and here I thought I would have to do all the work of Hokage for my helpless brother. His expression taking a complete turn, Hashirama's face morphed into his usual pseudo-depressed state and dejectedly whined, "I'm not that lazy." "We will see about that in just a moment," Brother Tobirama says with an evil smile that sent chills to his brother's spine. Little did Hashirama know, he had just witnessed the first appearance of the soon-to-be-known Tobirama Senju, the great administrator. They then spent the rest of the evening and the following days arguing about this new would-be institution that may revolutionize the ninja world. First, they agreed that it should be located on the safest location possible in the village, close to the Hokage headquarters. Then they had to take into consideration the entity that will preside over it. Hashirama, being the kinder of the two brothers, wanted it to be under the authority of the civilian council, since after all, undergraduates would have yet to become proper shinobi, but Tobirama strongly disagreed, stating that the matter of training the future generation of ninja is too important as to let some civilians fools handle it. They finally reached the conclusion that the Hokage would be the headmaster while the civilians would act as the institution's council board, noting that the teachers were to be retired experienced shinobis. After that came the issue of the admission criteria. They laid out a few points, but the most important ones were: 1. Love the village and hope to help preserve peace and prosperity. 2. Have a mind that will not yield, able to endure hard training and work. 3. Be healthy in mind and body. For graduate from the civilian preschool or be given permission by the headmaster to integrate the program. For the curriculum itself, the two brothers thought about letting the next generations change it as they see fit, so they just planned out the most basic elements of the formation. The students will be trained and tested in all 3 major shinobi arts: taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. They will also be formed in the multiple skills needed for one to become a shinobi, kunai and shuriken handling, basic chakra control, and a few fundamental techniques such as kawarimi, henge, and bunshin no jutsu. Not only that, but they will also be taught about various subjects necessary to ninjas: geography, history, mathematics, anatomy, physics, with specialized cells forming medical ninja. Hashirama's and Tobirama's Academy, as it came to be known upon the elemental nation, was first met with ridicule and harsh critics. Yet after some time it became a defining institution of the Kanehagakure village, and no one could deny the impact it had on forming the best shinobis in the elemental nations, so much so that the other great elemental villages had to develop their own training institution to try and keep up with the rising military power of Konoha. In the end, Hashirama's bet came into fruition, as the academy was considered one of the key reasons Konoha stayed on top of the other villages. On his deathbed, when people asked Hashirama Senju, the god of shinobi, the bijou master, the father of Konoha, what was his greatest feat, he chuckled a bit before answering mysteriously, and without any doubt in his voice, "I have let the children play." Many scholars would then analyze the events of Hashirama Senju's life to try and decipher what exactly did he mean with his answer. Chapter 2. Spark of Life. Count your age by friends, not years. Count your life by smiles, not tears. A John Lennon. Gray. Oh, how much he despised that color. Hell, as far as he knew, it is not even considered to be one, and how could it be? How could something so dull, so devoid of life and meaning, even begin to compare with the serenity of lavender, the passion of purple, the intensity of blue, and the wilderness of yellow? Even the fury of red made him feel something. Why can't they just repaint this godforsaken ceiling with a bright and cheerful orange instead? Perhaps they wanted it to remind us of our boring and hollow lives. But after a moment, and with lips slightly curving upward, he finally thought that it probably was just a question of managing costs. After all, it was still an orphanage. Sitting on his bed as he glances at the window, the first rays of sunlight had yet to grace the earth. Soon, he whispers. Thinking back of his existence so far, he couldn't remember of anything noticeable. It was all the same every day. He would wake up in this gloomy communal sleeping room. Sometimes new faces came, sometimes old faces left. It was as if time was slowly passing by, and he was but an unanimated witness from outside. He would then be spending the remainder of the day reading storybooks, as nobody seemed to want to spend time with him. After that time, the caretakers separated him from the group of kids he was trying to interact with, spitting that a demon child should not play with human ones. At first he was hurt and confused, but after some time and consideration he came to accept that he was different. After all, what else could he do about it but accept it? At least he now felt it was natural to spend time alone. He had read about all of those fictional heroes that would explore the world and fight against all odds to save those they loved. They were strong and just, but to him, it just seemed too good to be true. As if something like this could really exist, he thought while snickering. Raising his head to watch his surrounding, he added, "The world, huh? And what would that exactly mean?" For all he could think of, the orphanage was his world, and the only thing it made him want to do is disappear. But he should not kid himself. He saw how big he was compared to every other child here. He knew that there was probably no one out there that would be willing to call him family, and so he had no way of vanishing from this place. But maybe one day, when he becomes too big and problematic, they would throw him out like a dysfunctional product. Yes, all he had to do was wait a few more years. Walking by the communal sleeping room's window, he couldn't help but stop in his track and admire the view he had in front of him. The sun was drowning the green pine trees with its warm light, as the brown forest seemed to go on forever, just to be toppled by a majestic glowing white mountain crowned by the clear blue sky. There, I knew it would be magnificent, he utters with hypnotized eyes as he slowly tries to reach out to this view until his hand was met with the cold texture of glass. But it is not my world, he finally whispers with a dejected expression, gazing at the view for a few more minutes before suddenly biting his lower lip, and with eyes that showed more resolve than they ever did, he courageously said to no one in particular, "And why exactly would it not be?" Boldly opening the window, he glanced one last time at the room he spent most of his life in. There was nobody. As always, he ironically thought, before jumping into what he hoped was his salvation. The moment his feet felt the pressure of this new kind of ground, he sensed an immense urge to start running, and running he did, for at first his face had a small grin, then a smile that matched the brightness of the beaming sun, and after a few minutes, he could not stop himself from laughing like he had never laughed before. He didn't know how far he had gone, but he didn't want this feeling to die out, so he kept moving, finally coming to a stop when his legs gave out. And with teary eyes, he started rolling on the green ground, feeling the wet grass brush his euphoric face. After that, he climbed the highest tree he could find and was momentarily struck by the sheer vastness of the world he could see. Taking a few moments to catch his breath on the tree branch, he pondered, so this is what being alive really is like. Feeling tired after all the energy he had burned earlier from moving so much, his eyelids became heavier by the second, until he finally fell into blissful slumber as gentle breezes of wind caressed his limp body. As the shadows receded, he got woken up by rays of sunlight striking his eyes, noticing the change in the sun's position. He felt as if a few hours had passed since he took on his journey, feeling his back ache from sleeping on such a rough surface. He got down from the tree pondering, and now what? I don't have any food or water, nor a place to safely stay at night. And I don't know anything about surviving in the wilderness. Sitting against the tree trunk, he buried his head between his legs. Should I come back? He chased those thoughts almost as fast as they came to be. Feeling some guilt about his doubts, he harshly thought to himself, "No, I will never return to that life. I would rather die trying to be free than lose myself in despair in that place." With a newfound resolve, he began searching for a sharp-looking stick or tree branch. Once he found one, he started looking for a river that might contain some fish. After dozens of minutes searching, he finally found what he was looking for. He was nearly hypnotized by the crystalline water and the beauty of the fish swiftly swimming underneath. Remembering his objective, he quickly pulled his pants up to his knees and stood in the middle of the stream. Try as he might, he couldn't get anything despite his numerous attempts. Yet he decided to press on, determined to survive. "You are doing it all wrong, young one," a gruffy voice came from the left bank of the river. Tensing up, he turned toward the voice while lifting his pseudo-spear into a defensive position as he tried to mask the fear in his eyes. What he found was a confused-looking old man with balding gray hair and wrinkles spread across his face sitting in a relaxed position. Suddenly, the old man burst into laughter while repeatedly hitting the ground next to him. "Don't worry, boy. I wouldn't dare to fight such a fearsome-looking warrior." Unexpectedly starting to feel self-conscious, the kid lowered his stick while feeling quite embarrassed. "Shut up. Who are you anyway?" he said, trying to regain some dignity. "Oh, me? I'm just a poor old man passing by," he answered in a light tone. "And you happen to enjoy watching people having a hard time?" teased the boy with a smirk. "Well, I have to admit it was quite the humoring sight. How do you say I teach you how to catch fish in order to pay you back for helping an old man get a small giggle?" His face turning to surprise in a fraction of time, as the boy immediately shouted, "Really? You would do that for me, Ojikin?" "That and hopefully much more," the old man thought while slowly nodding with a cheerful smile. Sitting side by side across the small fire camp they had made, the old man and the boy were gazing at the distance. It seemed as, whether the first time or one of many, watching the sky turn red as the sun slowly disappeared under the distant horizon was always an experience one would cherish. "So, tell me, young one, what is your name?" said the man without averting his eyes from the breathtaking view in front of him. With a stoic face, the boy answered, "People always called me Demon Child, but I think my real name is—" He pondered for a moment as if trying to remember something important. "Naruto. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto." On the outside, the only reaction from the elderly man was the squinting of his eyes. Yet internally, he felt an ache that nearly shred his elderly heart to pieces. "I hope you won't mind me just calling you Naruto." Shaking his head, it was the blonde's turn to ask, "How about you, Ji-chan?" Hesitating for a moment, the old man finally decided to answer truthfully, "I am Hiruzen Sarutobi, but you can keep calling me Grandpa if you want," furtively turning his eyes toward the blonde boy to try and analyze his reaction. He didn't know whether to feel relieved that he didn't have to explain why someone like him was here or saddened that the youngster didn't seem know what his name carried. "You bet I will, Aji-san," retorted an enthusiastic-looking Naruto. They sat in their comfortable silence for a while before hearing a rumbling sound coming from both their stomach, looking at each other with an embarrassed expression. The old man and the boy started wholeheartedly laughing at each other's expense. Calming down, Hiruzen asked, "Maybe we should eat the fruits of your hard labor before they turn into charcoal. Shouldn't we, Naruto?" "Yeah. Let's hurry before your stomach starts sucking me inside like a vortex. I wouldn't want to end up in an old man's belly," joked Naruto with a smirk. As they both ate their fish in a jovial atmosphere, the stars started filling the nocturnal sky, and Naruto couldn't take his eyes off the mesmerizing sight above him. Noticing his companion's dreamy gaze, Hiruzen declared with a serene smile, "You know, Naruto, each one of those stars are like our world's sun, but being so far away, they only appear as specks in the dark night sky." "Really, Ji-chan? But there are so many of them!" exclaimed a totally awestruck Naruto. "Yes, Naruto. The world is vast and boundless," added Hiruzen while raising his arm as if to prove his points. Admiring his counterpart's knowledge, Naruto complimented, "Whoa, you sure know a lot, Ji-chan," before a sad smile adorned his young features. "Since the world is so big," the old man turned toward the boy with a questioning expression. "Do you think that there is someone out there that will accept me as their family?" finished the now teary-eyed child with a sorrowful tone. If Hiruzen was trying to hide his emotion before, then he had just failed that, as his face now deformed into a painful expression. Reaching out with his arms to enclose the boy's smaller frame, he pulled him into the first hug the boy has ever experienced. Not knowing how to react, Naruto just kept sobbing on his grandfather figure's chest. After a moment of trying to soothe the distressed child, Hiruzen declared, "You're breaking my heart, Naruto. Did you already get bored of your poor old grandpa?" Hiruzen sputtered with a sad laugh. Astonished, Naruto raised his head to the old man, showing him his messy face moments before it was adorned with one of the brightest smiles Hiruzen had seen in his long life. "Not yet, Ji-chan." They stayed in that position until they both calmed down, after which they just sat across each other while being noticeably more comfortable with each other's presence than before. "Ji-chan, since you know so much about the world, why don't you tell me a story?" requested the blue-eyed child. Adopting a thinking position with a hand on his chin, "A story, huh?" Hiruzen thought for a moment before continuing, "How about the story of the man that saved his village from a demon fox?" Pouting a bit, the blonde-haired orphan whined, "Jikarayan, I've read way too many books about fictional heroes. I want a story from the real world." Grinning at his grandson's figure antics, the man retorted, "Oh, but this story is real, and it's not even that old. It actually happened not long before your birth." Immediately gaining Naruto's full attention, the old man continued, "It's a story about a very fine young man that had golden hair just like yours." Hiruzen went on and recounted the story of Namake's Minato and his great feats leading to him becoming the fourth Hokage of Konohagakure. "What's an Hokage, Gigi?" asked a confused Naruto, correcting the youngster with a small chuckle. "The Hokage is the person that protects the village and all of its inhabitants as if they were his own family." Lighting a bulb above Naruto's head, the blonde interjects, "So, if I become Hokage, I can have all of the village as my family?" asked Naruto with eyes full of hope. Taking a moment to acknowledge his companion's words, Hiruzen then answers, "Well, of course you can, but if you want to become Hokage, you're going to have to be ready to help, love, and forgive everyone in the village. Just as a father would." Naruto nodded, seemingly understanding his grandfather's words. "Just as a father would," repeated Hiruzen with a warm smile. "Nana, what happens to the fourth Hokage next, Ji-chan?" As Sarutobi then continued with the attack of the Kyuubi on Konoha, Naruto again interrupted the old man with a question. "But why did the Kyuubi attack Konoha in the first place, Ji-chan?" Hiruzen seemed taken aback by this question and tried to casually respond. "Well, the Kyuubi is a demon, an evil creature that takes pleasure off of people's suffering. It can only be expected that it may attack a village." Not convinced by his answer, the blonde kept arguing with a skeptical expression. "If that's the case, then why was the village so unprepared to defend itself?" Was it the first time a demon attacked a town? Maybe there was a reason behind the demon's action. Now lost for words, the old man could only form one coherent thought. This kid is smart. Unknown to both, Naruto's questions formed a very toothy grin on a certain fox's face. Trying to regain his composure, he weakly admitted while rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment, "Well, Naruto, you're asking a poor old man some very difficult questions." With a toothy smile, Naruto didn't mind as he enthusiastically asked his grandfather figure for more stories. Well, there was this one time the first Hokage defeated all of the tailed beasts, and then proceeded to send them to all of the great villages as equally as possible, the old man narrated. "What? Why didn't he keep them all for himself and his village?" queried a confused Naruto. "Imagine you are playing with your friends and you get to have all of the toys. How do you think they would feel?" Hiruzen asked, waiting to hear the blonde's answer. Pondering for a moment, not wanting to admit that he didn't have any friends, Naruto then answered hesitantly, "Wouldn't they feel envious of me? They could maybe even stop wanting to be my friends and hate me." Realization struck him as he looked at his Gigis with wide eyes, noticing he was displaying a noticeable amount of pride on his wrinkled face. "I think I understand," he then added while hitting his fist on his open palm while nodding. They spent the remainder of the evening following this pattern. As Hiruzen recounted a story, Naruto would flood him with thoughtful questions and weird declarations that never failed to surprise and sometimes even impress the elderly man. After a while, Hiruzen started noticing the fatigue in the youngster's voice, so he decided to haul him onto his back and started heading towards Konoha. "Where are we going, Ji-chan?" weakly asked the blonde. "Your new home," simply replied the old man. And that one word was enough to plant a smile on Naruto's face for the rest of the ride. Upon reaching Konoha, Naruto felt awe at the sheer number of buildings grouped in one place as they passed through the gates and into the empty streets of Konoha. Realizing that they were heading to the biggest building in the village, Naruto asked with a confused tone, "Is this where you live, Ji-chan? You must be pretty important around." The only answer he would get from the old man was a grin. After receiving a nod from the receptionist, Hiruzen then headed towards his office, wondering how long it would take for Naruto to notice. "Welcome back, Hokage-sama," said the secretary that was seated on a desk not far from the Hokage's office door to the elderly man that was carrying him. Forgetting all his exhaustion for the time being, Naruto couldn't help but turn towards the old man and scream, "You are the Hokage?" Wincing from the pain in his ears, the Sandaime calmly reprimanded, Naruto, you're going to wake the whole land of fire if you scream that loud," before adding with a grin, "You didn't think your grandpa was this awesome, did you?" Now, Naruto couldn't contain his excitation. "So Gigi is the Hokage, and the Hokage is Gigi, so now you are Hokage Gigi." The old Hokage laughed as he entered the room with Naruto still on his back. That's when he softly laid him onto the couch while he sat at the desk. "You can rest for now, Naruto. I'm just going to finalize the paperwork concerning your new situation." All forms of excitement slowly disappearing, Naruto started relaxing into this newfound comfort. Looking at the white ceiling, Naruto couldn't help but giggle softly as he thought while fading into unconsciousness, "It's not orange, but I definitely don't mind white." Hiruzen sighed as he heard soft breathing sounds coming from the peaceful-looking child that was sleeping on his office couch. "Yeah, just let the older generation do all the work while you nap all day. Those youngsters, I swear to Kami." As he was finishing the paperwork needed for the transfer of Naruto from the orphanage to the village, he started considering his options. He thought about adopting Naruto as his grandson, but that would bring too much unwanted attention, and with that, too many problems. Similarly, asking another clan to adopt him would be too complicated on the administrative level with all the silly clan laws. Shaking his head in defeat, he resigned himself to letting Naruto live alone, a 12-year-old orphan living on his own, as if it was possible. He knew he had to assign someone to look after him, someone preferably in the ninja force, as the majority of the civilian population despised him. It also had to be someone that had the ability to feel empathy towards him and somehow relate to his situation. Someone that didn't have too many responsibilities to attend to, because God knows if he wasn't Hokage, Naruto would already be sleeping in the Sarutobi clan compound. As he was studying the profiles of the newly formed genins, his eyes fell on one particular Kurenai Yuhi. Orphaned, kind, and the best kunoichi of her promotion. Known incident includes her getting into fights protecting younger students from bullying. With a grin forming onto his face, Sarutobi thought, I might have just found the perfect candidate. Looking up towards his surrogate grandson, he couldn't help but be surprised at how the day turned out to be. What started as a vitally important mission to locate and retrieve Konoha's Jinchuriki after he ran out of his orphanage, resulted in the strong kinship that he developed with the boy. Was their relation less honest because their encounter couldn't be less random? Did he run from the orphanage because he was depressed? Should I have talked to him when I visited the orphanage? Did he already inflict innumerable suffering upon him? Had he failed him? Shaking his head, Sarutobi decided to bury those thoughts as he got up to watch over his grandson's sleeping form. It doesn't matter now, for this time, I will make it right. I promise you, Naruto, with all my power, I will protect the spark of life. Chapter 3. Unknown Fear and Fear of the Unknown. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Plato. Kurenai Yuhi was walking the streets of Konoha in a cheerful mood. She had been called by the Hokage to receive some kind of special mission. Not even a few months into my ninja career and I'm already getting special assignments. She happily thought, hoping it would be less boring than those deranks she has been doing with her team for the past weeks. Reaching the Hokage Tower, her excitement and relative inexperience made her skip directly to the village leader's office. But as she was trying to turn the door's knob, she was stopped by a gruffy voice. I guess I now know how my poor little secretary feels every day. Hokage-sama? Surprised by the voice, Kurenai turned only to find the mighty god of shinobis sitting on his secretary's desk with a noticeable grin on his face. Could you please lower your voice, Kurenai-san? It's still early in the morning, and you might wake some people, calmly reprimanded the third. Yes, sir, adopting a lower volume, she asked with a hint of confusion. But may I ask, why are you here instead of being inside your office? Perhaps this will become apparent when I explain your assignment. Kurenai nodded her head, prompting him to continue. I want you to take care of an orphan for me, Hiruzen declared with a serious tone. An orphan, Hokage-sama? Yes. He escaped his orphanage yesterday, and I thankfully managed to find him in the forest not far from the village. May I ask, why don't we just send him back to the orphanage? Inquired the red-eyed woman. He is the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, host of the Kyubi no Yoko. The moment those words left his mouth, he noticed the kunoichi's body tensing and her eyes twitching. But the old man didn't comment. He then added with a sigh, I don't want to risk him escaping again. Who knows what would happen if I don't manage to find him again in time. He wasn't necessarily lying, but he knew it wasn't the real reason either after Naruto's birth, and upon noticing the heated glares he attracted from the populace as he was walking the streets of Konoha with the baby in his arm, he decided that he would send him in an orphanage out of the village and forbid the caretakers, and with them everyone in the village, from telling the younger generation about the boy's relation to the Kyubi. He at least hoped that, this way, he would be able to make friends and live somewhat of a happy childhood. But he could not have been farther from the truth. It apparently resulted in the blonde being isolated and depressed, and once he reached the breaking point, he escaped. Sarutobi was, in a bizarre way, thankful it happened, as he now had a chance to undo his failures towards the boy. Trying to keep a calm front, Kurenai asked her superior, and what would that exactly include? Well, the poor boy doesn't have anyone in this village. I would just want for him to have someone to help him settle and be there if he needs anything. I would have gladly taken this position, but I'm afraid I have too many responsibilities to attend to. Understanding her leader, she nodded before asking, and how long will I have to look after him? Until he's able to take care of himself. I don't think it will be until his adulthood, thought, seeing as the young man is quite mature and smart for his age. On top of that, I'm very confident he will choose to join the academy. Your responsibilities toward him would then be reduced considerably. You also don't have to worry about him living with you, Kurenai-san. I already started the paperwork for the boy to get his own apartment, but it will take a few weeks for that to happen. You can take him in, but if you don't want to, I can let him stay with me. No, it's all right. I will find a solution, she quickly answered, not wanting to disappoint her superior. Well then that settles it. I just want to ask you one last question. Hiruzen's face turned into a serious expression as he added, do you have anything against him? Feeling the knot in her stomach tighten, she nonetheless found the courage to answer her Hokage, no, sir. I hope I'm not making a mistake, thought the man in question, noticing the uncertainty in her voice. Well then, let us wake the beast. He got up from his secretary's desk and stopped at his office door, turning to his subordinate, shall we? Answering him with a nod, she followed her Hokage as they entered the room. The moment Kurenai saw the blonde limp body sleeping on the couch, her first thought was, he looks so innocent. So what is it with this feeling in my stomach? Naruto was softly awakened from one of the best nights of his life by a hand shaking his shoulder, and as he opened his eyes, he could only see one thing. Red, so deep he could lose himself in it, but after a few seconds, came a voice with a hint of discomfort. Could you quit staring, please? Getting out of his haze, Naruto suddenly noticed he was staring right at the eyes of the older raven-haired women that had just woken him. Sorry, Wani-san, he apologized. I didn't mean to. Now smiling softly, she declared, no harm done. My name is Kurenai Yuhi. Nice to meet you. Thinking for a moment about how to tell the young woman her name, he opened his eyes and declared with a beaming smile, and I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the next Hokage. Yes, now I have something else that defines me, and I'd rather it be this than the demon child. Surprised by the boy's answer for a few moments, Kurenai then softly laughed with a hand covering her mouth. Well, aren't you the ambitious one? She didn't even notice that the knot in her stomach had vanished. Naruto blushed a bit before joining her laughing. Shaking his head, relieved that his doubt about the young kunoichi were unfounded, the Sandai mumbled in a pseudo-dejected tone. What is it with the younger generation ignoring their elders? Aji-chan. Naruto jumped from the couch to hug his happy-looking grandfather figure upon noticing him as a surprised Kurenai pondered. How close did they get in one day? Good morning, Naruto. I hope sleeping on the couch wasn't too uncomfortable. It wasn't that bad. And at least now I can brag about having slept on the Hokage's couch, teased Naruto with a grin. Smiling back to the boy, the Hokage's face then turned somewhat serious as he declared, Naruto, I'm sorry to tell you that I won't be able to look after you that much because of my Hokage duties. Not minding the sobering of the blonde's features, he added, however, I've assigned my best kunoichi to do exactly that. Pointing at the lone female in the room, he then added, if you need anything, you can just ask her, but don't cause her any problem, okay? Now excited from the prospect of making a new friend, Naruto enthusiastically nodded, yes, Ji-chan. But that doesn't mean you can't visit your poor old grandpa from time to time. I for one wouldn't mind you brightening my otherwise gloomy work-filled day. You bet I will, Hokage-ji, beamed Naruto to his grandfather figure. Now, as far as I would love to spend the day with you, I have duties to attend to, so I'm going to leave you in Kurenai-san's care, he states as he turns toward the red-eyed woman, who nods at the mention of her name. Oh, and Naruto, before I forget, do you want to join the academy? Asked Hiruzen. The academy? What's that? Questioned the boy with a hint of confusion. It's the place where you can become a ninja. You're going to need to be one if you want to become Hokage, declared the old man with a slight teasing grin on his face. Then you shouldn't have even asked, old man. I will become the greatest ninja ever, Naruto boldly declared. I know you will, smiling warmly at his surrogate grandson's ambitious goal. Let's get going, Naruto-san, called the woman with a soft voice. I'm following you, Wani-san. See you around, Ji-chan, he said while waving a hand to his grandfather figure as he left the office with the raven-haired woman. After walking for a few minutes in Konoha Street and making sure he knows the direction to her house, Kurenai showed him around her place briefly before calling for him, Naruto-san. You can call me Naruto. Reluctantly she obliged, okay, Naruto, before adding, I have to go train and perform missions with my team for the whole day, so I'm obliged to leave you alone right now. I'm gonna give you money to buy food for the day, and maybe even some clothing. I presume you only have the stuff you are wearing right now, don't you? Yes, admitted the blonde with a noticeable amount of embarrassment before adding, I don't mind that. I'll explore the village while I'm at it as well. Nodding, Kurenai then added, do as you please. But stay away from the red light districts east of the village. They aren't a very welcoming place for someone as young as yourself. Roger that, Kurenai, he enthusiastically answered before taking off running, leaving a surprised Kurenai sighing at his antics. Well, I guess it's not that bad after all, she finally thought with a smile. Naruto was excited about exploring this new environment. Lifting his head up, he was shocked to notice the 4 faces sculpted into the hill that was towering the village. He was especially surprised to recognize the 3rd face from the left, Ji-chan. Following his discovery, he naturally felt the urge to climb and sit on top of his Ji-chan's face. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to see the whole village from up there. After an exhausting mountain climb and as he sat on the cold rocky ground, he was amazed by the sheer amount of life present in the village he was gazing at. If I want to become Hokage, I'll need to know every street and corner of this place. He thought in the most determined spirit, until he was interrupted by a gurgling sound coming from his belly. Maybe I need to grab something to eat first. After getting a sandwich from a random restaurant, Naruto began his self-assigned mission. As he ran aimlessly through Konoha's sun-blessed streets, it reminded him of the feeling he had yesterday when he escaped the orphanage. A burning fire that pushed his legs to move on their own as he felt the cold breeze of the air hitting his face. Yes, it's going to get some used to, but Naruto was finally free. Deciding that he had explored enough for the day, Naruto went on to search for clothing shops. He didn't necessarily mind the ones he had on. However, it was going to be hard to survive with just his shirt and pant. But the moment Naruto entered a store, he felt an adult hand gripping him with force from behind. You! Stress begins to fill him as he turned to the man with a questioning expression, trying his best not to anger him more than he already seemed to be. Yes, sir? Answered Naruto hesitantly. We don't sell our products to demons. Leave now, or I will make you, spat the store owner as he pointed to the exit door of his establishment. A look of utter horror came upon Naruto's face as he quickly ran off the shop. How did he know who I am? Was he friend with the orphanage caretakers? What if other people know? To his great dismay, his assumption turned out to be right as he had a very similar experience in every shop he tried after that, even the ones that weren't selling clothes. Rapidly, the cold hard truth came crashing down on his earlier hopes of freedom as he realized, this village is just going to be a bigger cage for me. But wait, that restaurant I tried this morning. The owner didn't throw me out. Naruto took off running, praying that at least one establishment in this village won't treat him as a pariah. But those thoughts turned out to ashes as he was thrown out from the very place that had served him earlier. I didn't know you were a demon this morning, that's why I served you, as if I had grown horns in one day, joked Naruto, now understanding that rumors of a blonde demon child running amok spread like wildfire in the village. He couldn't help but sigh in a dejected manner, accepting his fate. He was on his way to Kurenai's apartment when he smelt something the likes of which he never smelled in his life. What is this? Why does it smell so good? Attracted like a hungry predator, Naruto diligently followed the smell until he found its origin. A small ramen stand, Ichiraku Ramen. Even knowing what the result would be, Naruto mustered as much courage as he could and hesitantly walked in, closing his eyes as he waited for the inevitable. Well, don't just stand there, boy, come take a seat, came the cheerful voice of man in his 50s. Taken aback by that statement, Naruto hesitantly asked, You're not going to throw me out? And why would I? Are you a wanted criminal or something? You look kinda young for that, joked a very confused ramen cook. I guess you haven't heard yet. People say I'm a demon kid, dejectedly declared Naruto with a shy voice. Oh, I heard, but I don't see any horns on this small head of yours. Boy, now are you going to order something? Or are you just going to stand there all gloomy and depressed? Teased the man with a grin. As Naruto hesitantly sat, he was met with the gaze of a girl in her late teens. What would you like to order? Asked the girl with a soft smile. Quickly glancing at the menu, The blonde just chose a random item and informed the teenage girl. After waiting for a few minutes, he watched in awe as the dish was served. It's so colorful, and that smell, oh Cammy. Before he could even realize it, Naruto was sitting across a very empty bowl with a content smile. That was amazing, Aji-san. I've never had anything so good in my life, exclaimed the blonde. Well, thank you, little one. You can have another bowl if you want. Naruto was now feeling weirdly thankful that he wasn't able to spend money on anything else, as he now was enjoying the best food of his life. Kami-sama, in all of the 9 years since we came to this village, I've never seen someone enjoy my food so much. What would be the name of this ramen-eating monster? Asked the man in a happy tone. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. You better remember that name because I'm going to be the next Hokage. Confidently answered the blonde before adding, how about you, Tuji-san? Ne-san? My name is Tuchi and I run this stand with my beautiful daughter Ayam, he calmly stated while pointing to a smiling girl in her late teens. After eating 4 bowls of ramen in a cheerful and light atmosphere, and a quick promise to come again, Naruto took off his seat and decided to go back to Kurine's house. He was feeling so happy that at least 2 people in this village other than his Gigi would accept him. Perhaps it's not going to be so bad living here. He kept walking lost in his thoughts, so much so that he didn't even notice that the sun has set and it was starting to get dark. Now feeling somewhat lost, Naruto walked in a fast pace towards a random direction, hoping he would bump into a place he'd recognize. I hope Kurine isn't worried. After strolling aimlessly for a few minutes, Naruto suddenly tensed as a deep voice came from behind. Are you lost, little boy? Not daring to meet the person's gaze, Naruto just stared at the ground as he answered truthfully, Yes, I am, sir. Could you please help me, oh? He was cut off by the man roughly pinning him to the wall of the alley, trying to ignore the wrenched smell coming from the man's face. Naruto struggled a bit before he felt an adult-sized fist collide with his stomach. Screaming, Naruto winced as tears threatened to fall from his eyes. He had never been hit before. This pain was new to him, and for all he could think, he couldn't understand what was happening. He weakly protested. This time, the fist came crashing onto his young face. Why? Ha ha ha, do you really think I need a reason to beat the shit out of you? I know what you are, and unlike the others, I won't calmly stand by looking at you roam freely in our village, venomously uttered the man as he spat on the young kid's face before adding, Your face looks so innocent. It doesn't really suit a demon like you. As he said that, Naruto noticed the man slowly taking a knife out of his pocket. Naruto was tetanized. He felt something he had never felt before, a kind of fear that was unknown to him. Naruto feared for his life, with tears now freely streaming down his beaten face, and he weakly trying to struggle against the man's grip. But it was too strong. He was still a meek child, his mind filled with dread as he watched the psychotic smile on the man's face as the sharp object came ever closer to his face. Yes, after I'm done marking this face of yours, you will always remember exactly who you are, slowly spat the man menacingly. That night, Konoha's usually calm nocturnal sky was filled with high-pitched screams of agony for dozens of long and painful minutes. And then silence, as if nothing ever happened. Am I going to die here in this dark and miserably alley? A mutilated blonde weakly thought as he was sobbing on the dirty ground. Maybe it's for the better. Maybe the world would be better off without me, and I would be better off without the world. Now somewhat accepting his fate, he turned towards the sky, laying on his back, admiring the stars for what he thought would be the last time. Of all his long 12 years of existence, the only memory that came upon him was that of his encounter with his grandfather. Yes, those stars were like the suns of this world. Maybe that's where he was going now. This thought brought him some semblance of peace, so he closed his eyes, awaiting his demise. Did you already get bored of your poor old grandpa? No, he sobbed. I for one wouldn't mind you brightening my otherwise gloomy work-filled day. Ji-chan, he whimpered. Your new home. I don't want to disappear. He suddenly screamed with all the air left in his damaged lungs. Mustering what life he had left, he fought tooth and nail against the soft tug of death. And at last, his battered and beaten body finally moved, wincing at the unmeasurable pain as he got up leaning against the wall. I will not die here, he thought with fiery eyes. I must be in the red light district. East. Yes, I think I know the way now. The boy started limping now, seemingly with a clear destination in mind. Another thrice be damned Torah retrieval mission, Kurenai thought as she reached her house in the evening. She was already accepting the blonde to be there spreading chaos. After all, he was still a 12-year-old boy, she thought, smiling softly. But upon opening the door, the only thing that was there to greet her was silence and darkness. Feeling her heart rate accelerate with each passing second, she rushed in looking for the blonde, only to find her residence empty. Fear started taking over as she sprinted toward the Hokage Tower to inform him of Naruto's disappearance, swiftly assigning an Umbu team to look for him. The Hokage then ordered her to go back to her apartment as he speculated that the boy might be heading there. Nodding formally, she returned to her place and decided to just wait at her door. Feeling the fatigue spread through her body, she let herself into a sitting position with her head buried into her legs. What happened to the boy? Where is he? Was it all her fault? Losing track of time in her worried and tired state, she did not even notice the hand that was softly put on her shoulder. Swiftly raising her head to its owner, Kurenai froze. She was met with red, one so deep she could lose herself in it, one that reminded her of that fateful night she became an orphan, when both her parents were slaughtered by that demon. Looking at the face that was staring at her, she saw bloodied whiskers that were reflecting the moon's light. Kurenai? A voice came from the same face as it began approaching her. She was shaking in fear. Was he going to murder her like he butchered her family? Was he there to finish the job he had started 12 years ago? Get away from me! She roughly shoved the boy who fell on the cold ground, before hearing a whimpering voice. Please don't hurt me. Suddenly regaining her senses, Kurenai watched as a bloodied boy was crying in front of her. Recognizing him despite his injuries, Kurenai tried launching herself toward him, but her body was still frozen. Why am I shaking? He's hurt. I have to help him, she thought as she bit her lower lip. You too? Was the final thing that came from the boy's mouth before he fell into unconsciousness. Naruto! She cried as she finally found the courage to approach him with blood dripping from her clenched fist. Sitting on a chair not far from Naruto's hospital bed, Kurenai couldn't help but feel her entire being drowned in shame looking at the worried and deeply saddened expression of her leader as he was looking over the injured boy. Hokage-sama. She tried weakly before being stopped by the shaking of Hiruzen's head. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally heard him solemnly declare, I was a fool not to expect this. He then added with no small amount of sorrow, I failed you once again. Naruto. Tears threatened to fall from his old and tired eyes as they gazed upon the pale and bandaged face of his grandson. Turning toward her kunoichi, he found her staring at the ground in disgrace. You are relieved of all your shinobi duties until Naruto joins the academy and starts living on his own. You will use this time to teach him to take care of himself and more importantly avoid danger. Is that understood? He declared in a tone that didn't leave much to debate. Yes, Hokage-sama, she answered, still staring at the ground. Hiruzen then left the kunoichi with her thoughts as he still needed to find the person that this and make sure they don't ever get to see the light of the day again. Kurenai didn't know if it was worry, guilt, or a combination of both that led her to stay in the hospital room for the night, but she couldn't care less. The boy didn't have anyone. The least she could do was be there when he wakes up. Naruto wasn't expecting to see someone as he woke up, even less so the raven-haired kunoichi that pushed him away so aggressively the night before. Yet when he thought about it, he remembered the look on her eyes and the shaking of her body. He didn't feel it was hatred, he felt something else. But what? Realization struck him as he compared it to how he felt when he got attacked. She's scared of me? Watching her wake up, he was yet again confused by her distress at noticing that he was looking straight at her. Naruto, I am so sorry for what happened to you, she feebly said, noticing the blonde flinching at the memories of yesterday before dejectedly adding, I wanted to wait for you to wake up before asking the Hokage to assign someone else to take care of you. Why would I want anybody else? Calmly asked the blonde. Don't you remember how I treated you yesterday? She cried in distress. But you don't hate me, stoically stated. Lost for words, Kurenai could only stare at him. I remember the look on your eyes, it wasn't hatred. I think it was fear. I don't know if I'll be able to be accepted in this place. I don't know how to change people's hatred, but fear is easy, although I don't know why you would be scared of me. I just need to show you that I can't even hurt a fly, he finished with a small smile. Oh, though I did hurt some poor fishes with Hokage-jiji, laughing while an embarrassed expression adorned his features. Feeling the ache in her heart starting to calm down, Kurenai approached Naruto's bandaged body. She thought she could relate to him as she was orphaned herself. Yet the pain she saw in his expression the night before told her that he was enduring far more than she could ever imagine. She couldn't comprehend how he found it in himself to keep smiling. He didn't turn his back on his dreams. He didn't turn his back on life, trying to reach out to this unknown force she saw in him. She once again felt disappointed in herself as her arm began shaking. But the moment she tried to retract her hand, she felt warm fingers grabbing it, and looking at the beaming smile on the boy's otherwise tired face. She once again relaxed and responded with one of her own. You are so bizarre, Uzumaki Naruto. But maybe one day I'll be able to understand you. Chapter 4. Nasty Stain. We cannot always change what has happened to us, but we can change how we react and how we live in the future. Living with no regrets is living successfully.
Udir ellen torizoni.
The sun had risen on the hidden village in the leaf, but instead of the usual flow of people, there was a group in the middle of the merchant district that was getting larger and larger. If one were to guess, he would think there was some kind of event, and maybe in a way it would be right. As the light blessed the walls of the district, it had become apparent that those people were staring in disbelief at their property having been totally covered in graffiti, with one large wall in particular plastered with the phrase "The Demon Kid was here." Unknown to them, however, a lone figure was looking at the whole situation from atop one of the Hokage heads sculpted in the mountain. It was a blond man in his teens wearing long orange pants and a black shirt with an orange flame drawn in the middle covered by a long-sleeve black jacket. His glove-covered hands rose to light the cigarette in his mouth as his cerulean blue eyes focused on his work. He couldn't help but feel a hint of pride. This is but music to my ears, he took off from his sitting position with a smirk as sounds of angry and frustrated civilians filled the air. Yeah, there is no way I'm gonna fade away like an insignificant gray point. I'm gonna be a nasty orange stain they can't get their eyes off. If Konoha is to be my cage, then I'll be the lion they are trapped inside with, Naruto thought as he was casually strolling throughout the streets of the town. His life was one defined by one word. Freedom. If he wanted to get something, he'd buy it. If they didn't want to sell it to him, he'd steal it, and if he couldn't steal it, he'd just go and hunt for it in the forest. He started not giving a fuck about the glares and the usual insults that often came his way. They could be telling him sweet words for all it mattered. It has been a long time since Naruto stopped caring. He finally reached his home, not the shithole apartment he had in the middle of the village that despised him. No, he had reached the Forest of Death, a place where he could have the company of monsters like him. At first he had a hard time with them, but he slowly learned which creatures he could ignore, which ones he could fight, and which ones he had to run away from. It was the rule of the strongest, and Naruto didn't mind. It was, according to him, a fairer sets of rules than the ones he was stuck with in the village. He started the day with his usual workout routine. Physical conditioning was, after all, a very important part of a shinobi training. He thought it also didn't hurt that it gave him one hell of a sexy body. After what seemed like hours of workout, and with the sun reaching his apex, Naruto was searching for his lunch. Jumping from one tree to another in the most furtive way, he could so as to not alert any potential prey or predator. Yet he stopped in his tracks with surprise when his eyes fell on the body of a woman sitting on top of a branch. She had beautiful purple hair and a slightly brownish skin. She was wearing a beige overcoat with a mesh garment that extends from the nape of the neck to the thighs, daring. But I guess she has some good taste as well, he thought as he noticed she was also wearing a dark orange mini skirt. Unfortunately, he couldn't see her face as it was buried in her legs, seemingly conveying that she was feeling dejected. Very curious about what would a woman do in such a place, he scrapped his first idea of going to talk to her. For all his self-confidence, Naruto didn't know how to engage new people out of the blue, searching for something that would help him in his endeavor. A grin came upon him when he noticed the small group of boars in the forest ground not far from her. Perfect. I can kill two birds with one stone. He reached out to one of the kunai he scavenged on a dead ninja body as he prepared to attack. Anko was woken from her daze by what she thought was the screeching of an animal in panic. She swayed the area with her eyes and found the origin of the commotion. It was a blond man fighting a group of boars. Filled with curiosity, she decided to watch the scene from a closer position as she sneaked into some bushes. Now, who's this guy? I've thought I heard that this forest was barren of any human lives. Anko then got confused as the boy that seemed in his late teens started smiling when the boars finally decided to run away from him. Well, that's a failure in getting my lunch, however. He finished with a smirk as he seemingly started calmly walking toward her position. Did he see me? She frantically thought as she tried hiding herself even more. Every day I worry all day about what's waiting in the bushes of love, cause something's waiting in the bushes for us. Yes, something's waiting in the bushes of love. Suddenly, a hand grabbed the back of her trench coat and lifted her upper body up from the ground for him to see. Whoa, they lied to me. You're supposed to be a mutant or something, but you seems fine. Yeah, very fine indeed, although I don't usually dig exhibitionism. What? Who are you? What are you doing on my territory? Exclaimed a totally surprised Anko. Oh girl, this was my turf before you stopped wetting your diapers. I was kind enough to let you weep and brood all day long without you paying rent, but don't go around saying it's your territory and other hilarious jokes like that, he retorted with a mocking grin. Why, you saw me? She asked in disbelief as terror was filling her. I wouldn't be surprised if a blind man broke his neck because of that outfit of yours. If you wanted to be stealthy, I'd suggest something lick. Naruto couldn't finish his sentence as a pair of kunais were thrown in his direction. Thankfully, he had enough time to kawarimi and appear on top of a tree branch towering the patch of land the woman was standing on. Oi, you should be more careful with sharp objects like that, jokingly warned the teen. I'm going to murder you, you fucking brat, spat out the now livid woman. And dirty-mouthed. I'm adding that to the list right along being bipolar and an exhibitionist. Are you trying to make me fall for you? Teased Naruto. Yeah. Get down here and we'll see if you can still smooth talk like that with a few missing teeth. Kid, said Anko, trying to taunt the blonde. Tough things to say for someone with a bomb on their neck, finally declared the blonde with very large sneer. Suddenly feeling a piece of paper on her trench coat rapidly igniting, in a blink of an eye, she tossed her jacket away and jumped to the side, trying to gain some distance, bracing herself for the explosion. When nothing came, she looked up to a very entertained blonde who was apparently examining her body. Oh my, already undressing for me? It's too early. I'm not ready for this kind of relationship, whined the blonde with a fake dejected tone. Did you really think I was going to ruin your coat? I can't have you go back to the village like that. You'd kill half the male population. He finally added, still maintaining his smug smile. You better pray to all the deities you know of that I won't be able to lay my hands on you, dangerously warned the woman. Then catch me if you can, exhibitionist-chan, he casually declared before taking off. Not wasting her time as her anger was threatening to spill over at any second, the woman took off running behind him as if her life depended on it. But after a few hours of chasing, she had to stop to recover her breath. This kid was toying with her. He seemed to know exactly what was behind every single tree of this forest. Maybe he wasn't lying when he said that this was his home. Already tired? It's usually the man that gives out first, asked Naruto in a teasing tone. Shut up. I am not tired, said the woman between forceful breaths. Naruto was having a hell of a lot of fun with this woman, but after so much cat and mouse play he was starting to feel hungry, and he bet the woman felt that as well. Hey, what do you say I pay you dinner in compensation for all the teasing I ran you through today? He asked, not accepting an answer. Okay, was the word that finally came out of the woman's mouth. Wow, that was easy. Naruto could not believe that the woman that was trying to kill him for the past hours just casually accepted to eat with him. As far as it pains me to admit it, I won't be able to catch you, and I'd be dumb to refuse free food, she admitted before secretly adding in her head, and you are one of the few persons that would like to spend some time with me. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, the demon kid, pleased to serve you. He introduced himself with a sarcastic bow. Wait, you are the demon kid? She asked in disbelief. Are you new to the village? You're probably the only person that doesn't know who I am. Man, I saw what you do to the villagers, and it's art, Serves those cocksuckers right if you asked me. Ho ho ho, do I have a secret admirer? Teasingly asked the boy while laughing behind his hand. Fuck off. Don't get full of yourself, you're still a brat, retorted the woman. And since you still haven't told me your name, you're still Miss Exhibitionist-chan. Blushing a bit from embarrassment before she declared, I'm Anko Mitarashi. I recently came to the village after. She stopped dead in her track and suddenly found the ground to be very interesting. Noticing her body tensing, Naruto decided to intervene. If I cared to know where you came from, I would have asked you. Shooting him a heated glare, she then realized what he did and shook her head with a small smile. You're too smart for your own good, kid. And how am I supposed to not get full of myself after comments like that? Smugly retorted the boy. They walked together toward the village in a calm fashion until Anko decided to break the awkwardness. Aren't you excited to go on a date with the super sexy Mitarashi Anko? She tentatively asked with a teasing grin. A date, huh? If I wanted to take you on a date, you'd be having the most fun of your life right now, he declared before adding, going to a restaurant for a date is just okay in my books. And as you might have already guessed, I don't do okay. I just don't want you to try and murder me every time you'll get the chance to, finished the boy with a deadpan. And who said paying me dinner would be enough to make me stop? She inquired as she was still trying to mess with the blonde walking beside her. Are you trying to make me change my mind? He retorted before he saw a distressed look on her face that was more than enough of an answer. Ha ha ha, you're so helpless. So, what do you want to eat? He let out after a small laugh. I guess grilled meat would be fine, she let out without any excitement. All right, let's try again. What do you really want to eat? Now asked the blonde in a serious tone. Taken aback by the question, Anko pondered for a moment in embarrassment before letting out. I've always wanted to try dango, but… It was all Naruto needed to hear as he grabbed her hand and started to run in the streets. Seemingly having a clear destination in mind, he was blacklisted in most of Konoha's establishments, but a rare few were still open towards him. He didn't yet understand the reason thought, but he thanked the gods that the dango restaurant owner was one of them. Sitting across one another, they casually began to chat about their lives and shared interests. He learned, for example, that Anko was a chunin and that she was seemingly very impressed with his masterpieces, so he obliged and recounted his best works to her. If you want, I can take you with me from time to time, he casually offered. Really? I've always wanted to fuck with the civilians, she quickly answered with visible excitement in her voice. Would that be enough for you not to try and kill me at every occasion? The boy tentatively asked. Come on. Didn't we have so much fun together? Teased Anko with a sarcastically sad expression. I would prefer to keep my balls well into adulthood, thank you very much, was the quick answer that came from the blonde, causing his counterpart to giggle. I have to admit, you know how to bargain your way out of situation, kid, the woman admitted, seemingly content with how the interaction turned. As the food was served, Naruto discovered that he was the only one of the two not born with a sweet tooth, as he watched in dismay while the woman made a handful of dango sticks disappear in what seemed like seconds. Naruto was scared for his money, but he was happy the woman enjoyed her food as much as she did. They kept chatting in a jovial atmosphere, and even more so after Anko decided to order some sake. You know it's illegal for me to drink, right? Asked a worried blonde. Come on, you seem mature enough to me, whined the woman as she filled her glass. Yeah, no thanks, I'm not going to jail for your pretty ass, he declared, prompting the purple-haired kunoichi to burst out laughing. After the most fun the woman had in a long time, they both departed as Naruto offered to escort her home, seeing as she was barely able to hold herself after the amount of liquor she drank. Did you really have to live that far? Asked the blonde, seemingly tired from supporting the woman on his shoulders. Are you saying I'm heavy, Naruto-kun? Threatened the woman as she got a kunai out. Not wanting to try his luck with a drunkard handling a sharp weapon, suffice to say, he didn't have the best experiences when it came to those. He gave in and tried to appease her, declaring, Anko-sama, you are as light as a feather. Would you like me to carry you bridal style since your figure is oh so slender? Yeah, you wish, kid, jokingly responded the woman. We're here, she declared as they reached the door of an apartment before adding in frustration, shit, where are my keys? She asked to no one in particular while clumsily searching her pockets. Ba whatever. And Ai-chan, can you open the door?
Nai-chan.
Oh fuck, was the only thought that filled Naruto's head as the door opened to reveal a very surprised raven-haired woman with deep red eyes that were trying to punch holes in his being. Well, hey there Kurinai-ne, long time to see, I was just about to take off Sue. He sputtered as he was trying to casually escape. Why don't you come inside for a cup of tea? She calmly said in a very dangerous low tone that sent chills down the teen's spine. It was like an invisible force was pinning him in place as he turned in defeat, following the kunoichi inside as they laid Anko in her bed while she invited him to sit with her in the living room. So, Naruto, why don't you start explaining yourself? She firmly opened the conversation with. I saw a sad puppy in the forest and decided to cheer it up a bit. I even paid her dinner after she tried to kill me and stuff. He started explaining with a hint of discomfort before adding seriously. I promise I didn't have anything funny in mind. You know I wasn't talking about that. She sighed before adding in a somewhat saddened tone. Why have you been avoiding me? Realization struck him as he suddenly found the ground to be very interesting. Kurine, he tried weakly, his discomfort apparent in his posture. You think I don't know what you're trying to do? Not wanting other people to associate the oh so high and respected kunoichi that I am with the demon kid? She sarcastically spat with anger. Surprised by what the woman just said, Naruto looked up at her with wide-open eyes as he tried moving his lips, but no words came out. Did you even consider how would I feel? What would I want? Do you even realize how selfish you were? Not letting the blonde any time to rest between her sharp questions. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, Kurinai-ne, were the words that finally came out from Naruto's mouth with a glum tone. After a few minutes of silence, the red-eyed kunoichi finally sighed before declaring, You know Naruto. Even though you became an arrogant and sometimes very annoying brat, I still love you. So don't you dare try something like that ever again. Is that understood? Not expecting what happened next, Kurinai was surprised by the warm body hugging her tightly. Yes. I understand, Kurinai-ne. I've missed you so much. Then you shouldn't have been avoiding me, you idiot. She laughed before returning the hug. I've missed you too, Baka. Since that day's events, one would be hard-pressed not to notice that the demon brat was here, was often replaced with the demon brat and the snake whore were here. As for Kurinai, she was happy to see how cheerful Anko became after meeting with Naruto. They would often go on their pranking adventures together, only to come back for dinner being very dirty yet with happy grins plastered on their face. It was as if she became the mother of two very problematic kids. Laughing at the image in her head softly, Kurinai had to stop when she felt a slightly uncomfortable pinch in her heart. All taught I wouldn't mind if he was to spend a bit more time with me as well, she thought as she was going through the pile of letters she received this morning. Naruto Uzumaki's academic semester results since she was officially Naruto's guardian. She was the one receiving those kinds of letters. Curious, she decided to take a look to see how her younger brother figure was doing in that aspect. What the hell are those grades? She exclaimed in shock. She knew Naruto was smart. Even though he didn't seem to care much for his academic life, she knew he could at least stay in the middle of the class without too much effort. How did this happen? Thinking for a moment, her mind came with the only logical conclusion. Anko? It all made sense. He finally found someone that could relate to him, someone he could spend the entire day with, fooling around like no tomorrow, and this person isn't me, she painfully admitted, getting up as she decided she needed to rest a bit, giving one last glance to Naruto's results. That's when her eyes lit up. She swiftly took the piece of paper and took off to the Hokage's tower. That might work, she thought as grin adorned her fair features. And that is why I should be assigned to be Naruto's tutor until his grades improve back to acceptable levels, she finished with a proud smile. You seem very keen on teaching the blonde. Are there any specific reasons you want to do this? Calmly noted Hiruzen. Fighting back the feeling of embarrassment, she tried to reply as stoically as possible. Well, technically, I'm still Naruto's guardian, and I wouldn't allow him to get kicked out from the academy because of his bad results. Seemingly approving her arguments, the Hokage gave her a nod before ordering one of his umbu, "Get Naruto Uzumaki here." After about half an hour of waiting in silence, a young man came through the door. "Ah, Ji-chan, how is it going?" cheerfully declared the blonde. Upon receiving a serious gaze as his only answer, he casually approached the Hokage and tried to force his mouth into a smile. "You know you should smile more, Ji-chan, or else your face will be filled with wrinkles. More than it is right now, that is," he declared with a teasing grin. "Oh, I think it's your face that is going to have some wrinkles after this meeting." It was now Sarutobi's turn to sneer evilly. A confused Naruto then turned to the lone female in the room. "Oh hey Kurinaine, I didn't notice you were—" He stopped in his tracks when he saw the piece of paper in her hand. Starting to shake with fear, he tried to defend himself. "Listen, I can explain." A few days later, the blonde and the raven-haired Kunoichi could be seen in her house, as she gave the boy his first tutoring session. "Susu boring," comically cried Naruto as his face slammed against the table he was studying on with his new tutor. "Maybe it wasn't that great of an idea. I don't think I can make him have fun with me like that," Kurenai realized after only dozens of minutes into their session. "Don't you have more important stuff to do than this? I know I screwed up, but I promise I can manage to fix it next semester. And who do you think is responsible for the situation we are in? You shouldn't forget that I'm still your guardian," she bluffed, praying he would fall for it. All right, I get it," he answered, sounding totally defeated. "Naruto, this is knowledge that every shinobi needs in his career," she argued, trying to persuade him into focusing. "Yeah, you must have done a lot of function analysis and thermodynamic studies, seeing as you're a chunin then," sarcastically retorted a bored-sounding Naruto. An embarrassed Kurenai was lost for words as he used her own logic against her. "You know what would make this any less boring?" Confused at her sudden attention, he nonetheless continued. "Maybe I would be a little bit more enthusiastic if my cute teacher was to wear a proper uniform," he teased with an evil smirk as he watched his counterpart get flustered in embarrassment. "You!" She started with a low voice before forming a hand sign, wanting to trap her student in a genjutsu, a painful one, that is. Looking as the blonde's body tensed and eyes were staring straight forward, she let out a sigh before declaring with pride, "That'll teach you not to be a naughty pervert." "Did you really think I would tease you like that without having an ace up my sleeve, Kurinaine?" suddenly stated a smirking Naruto as he regained his calm posture to a Kurenai still in shock. How? Did I fail my jutsu?" she thought as she tried to trap him in her illusion once again. And once again he came out of it a few seconds later, seemingly totally unfazed. "You're gonna have to try harder," teased the blonde. Kurenai couldn't believe her eyes. Despite still being a chunin, she was considered to be the best Konoha had to offer in terms of a genjutsu specialist, and here she was, unable to beat a teen that had yet to even graduate. "Why can't I get you in my genjutsu?" she asked with no small amount of annoyance. It's a secret Naruto's was enjoying this too much for her liking as his smug face still displayed his arrogant smirk. "Tell me now," she demanded with as much authority as she could muster. Era, and where would be the fun in this?" he joked while letting out an amused laugh. "Fine, what do you want?" she reluctantly muttered in defeat. "Oh, you know exactly what I want, Kurenai-sensei," answered Naruto, finishing in his special innocent tone. After a few minutes of intense silence and a heated staring contest, Naruto declared in a cheerful mood, "Welp, at least ITR." He was abruptly interrupted by his counterpart's firm voice. "Fine, but I get to choose the outfit." Eyes filling with excitement, Naruto quickly hit it with a hurt expression, saying, "You don't trust me to choose something decent for you? You're breaking my heart, Kurenai." Not bothering to answer, Kurenai got up and went into her room, searching for something to wear in order to satisfy her pupil's demands. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she thought, as she put on an assortment of high heels, thigh-high stocking that defined her long, slender legs. a black skirt and a tight long-sleeved button-down white shirt that showcased her womanly curves, with the last touch being a pair of glasses that complemented her gorgeous red eyes. Although I have to admit that I do look hot wearing this. She tried doing a sexy pose in front of her room's mirror before blushing furiously while shaking her head. Meanwhile, on the main roam, Naruto could not help but think, man, I can't believe what I just made Konoha's Ice Queen do. I'm gonna regret this so much one of these days. He began shaking in fear thinking about his future punishment. But the sound of a door opening revealed one of the sexiest sights he had ever gazed upon in his life. Okay, scrap that I'm not regretting this. Wow, was the only sound that came from his awestruck and blushing face. Could you please stop staring, please? It's embarrassing enough as it is, declared an uncomfortable Kurenai. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, he apologized as he tried averting his gaze, which prompted the raven-haired beauty to let out a laugh. I just realized that's exactly how our first interaction went. Are you sure you didn't have a crush on me, Naruto-kun? She then asked with a teasing grin, trying to at least get back at him for her humiliating situation. Shut up, weakly retorted the blonde while failing to keep himself from furiously blushing. Unknown to him, said woman could not chase a very happy feeling that invaded her beating heart, one that even she couldn't understand. All right, you got what you wanted. Now tell me everything, Naruto no Eki. Taken slightly aback by the surname she gave him, he quickly regained his posture, or at least tried to before seriously declaring, okay, so, when we were first taught about genjutsu and how to dispel them, I foolishly thought that it could be easily defeated by just using the taught method of dispelling them. After all, anybody with at least an ounce of skill could determine they are in a genjutsu, right? Wrong. The moment I got hit by one, I lost all my calm and started panicking. So much so that I even thought I was just having a bad dream and that I would wake up soon. Kurenai just nodded as she was familiar with the way people underestimated the effect genjutsus had on their mind. Then, I tried to find a way to systemically solve this problem. I figured I needed some kind of anchor that would help me stay stable and inform me whenever I got trapped into an illusion, he continued, trying to sound as concise as possible. An anchor? And what exactly could that be? Seeing as the genjutsu user has free reign over the victim's perception of his environment, she asked skeptically. Not fazed by the question, Naruto smiled before grabbing the soft hand of his teacher and placing it on the left side of his chest. After being confused for a few moments, Kurenai suddenly realized what he was getting at as she felt the strong and systematic beating of the blonde's heart. You don't mean? Exclaimed a wide-eyed Kurenai. Exactly, simply responded the teen with a smile. But even then, how would that help you? Well, I just thought about pulsating small waves of chakra following my heartbeat, and the moment I feel a disturbance in the rhythm, I would send a stronger pulse to get me out of the effect of the genjutsu, although that would require me to know that I'm facing a genjutsu user, and that would also be useless if I wasn't prepared for a fight. He ended, but noticed that his counterpart was still locked in a state of awe. Kurenai? He tried calling out for her. Naruto, do you realize that you've just created a very strong technique? She asked him in a more than serious tone. I guess I did? Haha, he replied sheepishly. They spend the next hour talking about the art of genjutsu, and Kurenai was frankly impressed by the teen input and thoughts on the topic. He seemed to notice things that took years for others to comprehend and went even further and used those observations to form coherent theories that could amplify one's ability to either use or defend against illusory techniques. I don't want to inflate your already big enough ego, but you know you could become a master in this field if you wanted to? She asked, still somewhat shocked by the blonde intelligence. Meh, I figured early enough that I had too much chakra to be good in either genjutsu or medical jutsu, and I don't plan on having to train for years in chakra control just to be able to execute the basic techniques, he stated nonchalantly before adding. And besides, Konoha only has one genjutsu genius, and right now, she's wearing a very erotic outfit, he teased as he enjoyed how Kurenai furiously blushed remembering what exactly she was wearing. Giving him a heated glare before letting out a sigh, Kurenai then dejectedly said with her head now hanging in defeat, How am I even supposed to punish you now? Finding an opportunity to tease his tutor even further, Naruto declared, If you keep talking about punishing me, while wearing Theseus clothes, I'm definitely gonna get a nosebleed. Not finding the energy to retort, Kurenai just began laughing. "Oh crap, did I break her?" joked Naruto. "You dummy. I just thought about how I was supposed to be teaching you and yet ended up learning a thing or two in the domain I'm said to be a master of," she stated while smiling softly. "And I really enjoyed discussing stuff like that with someone as intelligent as you, so I guess we're even," he added while sending one of his rare beaming smiles that would disrupt her heartbeat so much. She would think she was in a genjutsu if she was using her student's new technique. They sat in their comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company in what felt like a very happy moment for both of them before they heard a voice coming from the front door. "Nai-chan, I'm home." Now looking like a shaking mess, Kurenai could only form one thought, "Fuck," before she heard grocery bags hitting the floor as her eyes met with a very surprised and very still Anko Mitarashi looking straight at her. "I think I'm bisexual," finally declared the shocked woman as a small strain of blood could be seen coming from her nose. A few days later, one could see a very relaxed blonde laying on a tree branch in a calmer than usual forest of death. But a voice came from another branch below him to disturb his calm moment. "Marayan, this sucks so hard," whined Anko. "Oi! It's not my fault today is a holiday. But even if their store is closed, why can't we just prank them in their houses?" tentatively asked the woman. "I don't screw with people's home, Anko. Everyone should at least have one safe place where they can be happy with their family. I love making their life hell, but I draw the line here. If you want to do it, it's going to be on your own," declared a slightly annoyed Naruto. But what would I be without my evil master pranker?" answered the woman with a fake sad smile. "Piss off," Anko lightly retorted, trying to go back to his peaceful moment. Frustrated by her counterpart lack of willingness to entertain her as he usually does, she jumped into the upper branch, joining the blonde teen, and declared with a smirk, "I'm not letting you nap until you show me something fun." You know you can be a pain in the ass when you want to?" said Naruto as he finally gave in after a few minutes of being disturbed. He got himself into a sitting position facing the purple-haired woman, and casually began to take his shirt off. Starting to blush furiously, Anko panicked a bit as she sputtered, What are you doing?" "Naruto, I am not ready for that yet." Looking at her with a pair of confused eyes, Naruto burst out laughing before deciding to tease her. "Geez, what a virgin." Trying to avert her eyes from him in an embarrassed fashion, she weakly tried to retort, "Shut up. It's not like you're not a virgin as well." Not hearing any response for a moment, she rapidly turned her head to a very smug-looking blonde. "No fucking way," she exclaimed prior to asking, "You're not a virgin?" "I will neither confirm nor deny," he answered before adding, "Let's not get ourselves lost in this. Do you want me to show you, or are you going to pass out from looking at a man's chest?" Sending him a glare as an answer, she looked as he slowly took off his shirt, revealing a very toned and appealing upper body. Not letting herself ogle too much at the sight before her, she noticed something on his chest. It was a tattoo of the kanji for demon, and she couldn't help but think it looked pretty cool. "Looks nice, huh? I did it myself," he declared with a hint of pride. "Yeah, it is. But aren't you a bit too young for tattoos?" she asked, now perplexed at how fast the teen across her must have grown quickly to do these kinds of stuff. "So, you didn't mind the sexual jokes and remarks, but now you're worried about some ink? Although now that I think about it, maybe a prude like you didn't even notice them." Anko couldn't believe it. The snake whore, the woman that consistently teased and played with men like they were toys using her sex appeal, was being called a prude and a virgin. She began shaking in anger as her hair was obscuring her eyes. Panicking upon noticing the woman's rage build up, he started to swiftly think of any plan that would save him from unmeasurable pain. Moving on instinct alone, he launched himself forward at the woman and whispered in her ear, "Although I don't mind inexperienced girls," he said in the deepest voice he could make before planting a quick kiss on her cheeks. Not one to test his luck any further, he swiftly disappeared, fearful of what the woman might now do, hoping that he at least got himself a few seconds before she started chasing, because this time he didn't have the terrain advantage, as after their time together, Anko became as familiar as he was with the forest. If Naruto had stayed, he would have seen a very confused and blushing Anko patting the spot where the teen's lips were planted moments ago before she realized that he was buying time to escape her wrath. Not wasting any moment, She took off behind him, albeit with a noticeable smile on her face. After a very fun yet exhausting cat and mouse chase that reminded the duo of their first encounter, they both laid on the grassy ground of a large clearing, equally trying to regain their breath, before relaxing in the comfortable silence that came upon them. "You know, I have a mark as well," she declared seriously as the duo shifted into a sitting position. Slightly leaning his head in curiosity, Naruto waited for her to continue. He looked as she took off her trench coat while he was fighting the blush that was threatening to adorn his face, still confused by his counterpart's actions. She slowly approached him, and he now was feeling his heart beat faster with each centimeter she closed between them. It was only when she tilted her head to give him a clearer view of her neck that he noticed 3 black tomos arranged in a circular pattern drawn on her skin. After a few moments of examining the symbols, "What is this? I've never seen such thing in my life," asked a confused Naruto. "This is a curse mark. It's been given to me by the traitor Orochimaru of the Sannin while he was trying all sorts of sadistic experiments on me. I was rescued from one of his abandoned labs a few months before I met you, but I wasn't allowed to roam the village freely for a long time as they were interrogating me, making sure I was loyal to Konoha. Yet even then, I was considered a traitor by most in the village, and how could they not? I still have this godforsaken tattoo that will taint me for the rest of my life, constantly reminding them exactly what I am. And if it wasn't enough, my former sensei's gift sometimes flares up, causing me immense pain as it disrupts my chakra control, which makes me a shittier ninja in unpredictable and potential life or death situations," she monologued while staring at the ground with a sorrowful expression. "You can't get the seal taken off of you?" he asked weakly. Shaking her head in defeat, she answered, "There is no one in the village that knows enough about Fuinjutsu to get this shit off of me. And I don't even know if there is someone in the world that could, if I was being honest. Come on, Anko. I didn't know you to be a loser. I'm sure there is someone out there that will clean this stain for you. You just have to stay strong. Okay?" He tried to recomfort his friend but failed miserably as he saw her slowly nod with a face still filled with despair. "And if no such person exists, then I'll become that someone," he declared in his head, promising that he would fend the skies and split the seas to help his friends. Compared to that, what was reading a few books on some mysterious art? "You know, I lied when I told you that my whiskers were birthmarks," he started. Raising her sadness-filled eyes to see him, Anko weakly asked, "So, what are they?" "I was assaulted by a drunk man when I was 12. He said my face looked too innocent. So he wanted to give me something that would remind me of what I was, as he said. He then drew those on my cheeks with his knife," recounted the blonde as he was gazing at the distance. Feeling anger and sorrow fill her being, Anko was now finding their situation to be very similar. He was like her, a hurt soul trying to find some life in this unfair and utterly shitty world. Two pariah talking about their dreadful existence. Isn't it a bit too miserable? "No, I think it's comforting," admitted Naruto with a serene voice. "What do you mean?" asked Anko, confused. "It could have been one hell of a desolated life being the only defective person around. But you and I need never be lonely again," he declared solemnly with a small smile. Tears started to fill her eyes as a happy beam slowly replaced her previously sorrowful expression. "Maybe it's not that bad. As long as it is with you." Chapter 5, To Be Somebody. Never forget what you are, for surely the world will not. Make it your strength. Then it can never be your weakness. Armor yourself in it, and it will never be used to hurt you. A George R.R. Martin, A Game of Thrones. There were multiple reasons that led to the classification of sealing techniques, or as they are better known, Fuinjutsu, as a lost art. The only noticeable group of people that were proficient in the field were members of the Uzumaki clan. Now long extinct after the village where they lived has been razed to the ground from a coalition of their enemies, and with them, the collection of all the knowledge they had gathered upon generations and generations of small discoveries and advances on the subject. As Naruto read about the history of Fuinjutsu and its undeniable link to the Uzumaki clan, he began to wonder if he had any relation whatsoever to these people. Maybe he was a survivor of the massacre? No, the dates didn't match. He must have been a descendant of one of the survivors, although even that was put into question as the color of his hair was golden yellow instead of the blood red that most members of the clan had. He would have to ask his Gigi about this the next time they meet. Naruto, are you listening to me? Called for him a very soft voice. Focusing back into reality, he saw a raven-haired beauty trying to shake him out of his daze. Sorry, Kurinaine. I was just thinking about something, he vaguely declared. However, that didn't appease the worry apparent in her red eyes, seeing as she deepened her frown. For the past 2 years, she was spending a few hours a week tutoring the blonde. His grades weren't terrible, and she knew that he didn't want the attention that came with being on top of his classmates. Yet she still kept their sessions. She couldn't tell anyone, and even less the young man in front of her, but the few hours she spent with Naruto were one of the best of her week. They would at first humor the show of studying the academic subjects in question, before randomly starting a very deep in mind simulating conversation about serious subjects, ranging from morality and ethics to the meaning of life and death. Hell, they even explored subject as touchy as theology and the existence of a supreme being. And each time Kurinaine felt as if she was talking to a man decades her senior. She never had such experiences with anyone before, and frankly she wondered if there was anybody else she could get herself lost in such discussions. She tried to further examine her counterpart. For the past few weeks, the ever full of energy Uzumaki Naruto seemed as if he got more fatigued as the days went by. The bags under his eyes and messy hair were certainly good indicators as well. Deciding to inquire further, she asked, "Are you getting enough sleep, Naruto?" "Sleep? I guess I haven't been doing enough of that lately," he answered in with a fatigued expression. "And what exactly is weighing on your mind? Did a girl break your heart?" she teased. "I must really be looking like crap for you think that," mused the blonde before adding. "Truth is, I've been hitting a brick wall on my project, and I've been trying to forcefully break it for the past few weeks," he finally admitted. "A project? What are you working on?" she curiously asked. "I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you afterward," warned the blonde with an expression that didn't betray any lack of seriousness. Taken aback by the declaration, Kurinaine was about to change subjects as she was starting to feel uncomfortable before she heard the blonde's laugh. "Did you really believe me? Man, if only you could see the look on your face," he continued in a goofy manner. Sighing at the young man's antics, she declared sarcastically, "Very funny, Naruto. All right, I'm going to tell you, although I would like it to stay between us if possible, Kurinaine. It's not a problem. I could promise you that if you want." "No, I don't need you to promise me anything. You're the person I trust the most," he said with the softest of smiles that nearly made the woman's heart skip a beat. "Oh, okay, so what is it then?" she stuttered. She wasn't expecting how happy she could feel from just a simple declaration. "I have been trying to learn Fuinjutsu," he solemnly said. Taking a few moments to digest his declaration, Kurinaine then asked, "And why would an 18-year-old teenager bother to learn an art as specialized and obscure as Fuinjutsu?" "As for that, well, I want to help Anko." Taking a moment to digest what the young man just said, Kurinaine slowly began to understand his objectives. "Does she know that you're doing all of this for her?" "She doesn't even know that I'm doing it, and I wouldn't be surprised if she were to chase me around until I agreed to stop if she took wind of what I'm working on instead of studying for my graduation exams." Kurinaine was feeling a sea of emotions. Awe at the young man's dedication, pride understanding his objective, and even a hint of jealousy as she wondered if he would ever go that far for her. And maybe she would be right. Shouldn't you focus on your academic life? You are to graduate this year, are you not? "Well, for that I'm counting on you, Kurinaine-sensei," he exclaimed casually. Feeling happy that she was of use to his younger brother figure, Kurinaine shook her head before stating, "Well then, young man, let me tell you that you won't get anywhere being as fatigued as you are right now, so today's session is dismissed, go get some rest." "Yes, Marem," he accepted her request as he turned to leave. However, a pair of slender arms enrolled themselves around his body. "And Naruto?" she began before she hugged him with all her might while snuggling her head into his neck. "Thank you." "Was this really necessary, Kurinaine?" he asked, only to get a small laugh as his answer. "Maybe not, but I wanted to." Scene break. As Naruto was walking under the soothing light of the late afternoon, he sat on a bench in a random park, enjoying how calm his surrounding was. It has been a long time since he went on a pranking spree. Since Anko got that job in the T&I department, she had much less time to fool around with him, and to be frank, it didn't feel fun without her anymore. He just hoped she would have more time once she got promoted to Jonin. You better do, because I'm starting to miss you, dumbass. Staring at the book that was taunting him on his lap, he couldn't help but feel a hint of frustration. No matter how many late nights he spent searching for anything that would help him break through, he would utterly fail. And how exactly could I master such a hard subject in 2 years? Did I think of myself as some kind of genius? How pathetic, trying to get his mind off of the subject at hand. He lit a cigarette, longing to relax and forget about his shortcomings, hoping this comforting moment could last just a little bit longer. Unfortunately for Naruto, his hopes would be scattered by the clear cry of someone in distress. Cursing the gods, he reluctantly got up. Can I ever get some rest? Scene break. In an isolated part of the park, a teenage girl was looking scared as she was being surrounded by 3 older-looking boys. She had lost the person that was supposed to guard her while she was perhaps too excitingly exploring the park. She first felt uncomfortable seeing as they were clearly interested in her. Then, she began to feel scared as they started throwing insults at her for refusing their advances. Fear became terror as they approached her with a look on their eyes that conveyed emotions ranging from greed, anger, and lust. You guys aren't gonna get any pussy acting like such losers. Suddenly came a voice from behind the aggressors. You must know a lot about pussies, seeing as you are one. Demon spat one of them, recognizing the blonde in question as they turned to face him. A look that could only be described as evil adorned his face. If you guys are longing so much for some fun, why don't you play with me instead? He declared as his hands were still calmly stuffed in his pockets. And what are you going to do? Talk us into submission? They taunted while they prepared for a fight. His smirk enlarging even further, he got a kunai out of his pocket with his left hand and began spinning it on his fingers. Try me, bitch. Not accepting their opponent to have a weapon, the group of teens calmed down in defeat. A kunai? Against unarmed opponents? What a fucking coward, what seemed as their leader spat venomously. Yeah, going on a teenage girl 3-on-1, and I'm the coward, he joked before menacingly adding, now get lost before I change my mind about leaving your body scar-free. Boiling with anger, the 3 aggressors spat on the ground next to Naruto as they walked past him. Demon bastard. The moment they were far enough, Naruto sighed as his eyes fell on the girl. She was wearing a bulky white and lavender sweatshirt that matched the color of her beautiful pupilless eyes, and navy blue pants that complemented her dark blue waist reaching straight hair. She could only be described as majestic, yet the timid and reserved expression on her face betrayed her gentle side. Ano, you got called a coward because of me? I'm so sorry, mister. Just call me Naruto, he interrupted with a smile, and don't worry about that. In this world, there is only 2 kinds of people, the cowards and the idiots, so I take pride in being called the former, he declared before adding. But looking at you, I see a cowardly idiot. Tell me, why didn't you defend yourself? You seem stronger than those bastards. I didn't want to hurt them, admitted the young girl as she was trying to make herself as small as possible. Before feeling fingers flickering the top of her head, ouch, she cried weakly. Naruto laughed a bit at her shyness before declaring, you need to stop living your life for others. If good people like you don't defend themselves, then I'm going to be stuck in this world with assholes. But I don't know if I can do it. Listen, don't ever change the goodness in your heart. But to survive in this world, you will need to be strong, and the moment you feel some doubts. He flipped the kunai in his hand as to have the sharp side facing toward him, then proceeded to extend his arm to her. You'll just have to hold on to this, he finished with a beam. She hesitantly took the rusty-looking weapon and proceeded to hold it against her chest while bowing. I don't know how to thank you, Naruto-san. Feeling another pinch on her head, she whined, ouchie. You can start by not bowing to people anymore, he joked. As they both laughed lightly, a tall and distressed-looking man came into view. Understanding he was in one way or another related to the girl, Naruto sighed before declaring, "I'm sorry, little kitten, but if I stay any longer, he might think that I'm trying to corrupt you or some bullshit like that. So I'll see you around." He waved at her before taking off. What was left was a girl gently patting the top of her head, trying to soothe the small pain she felt while her cheeks took on a very noticeable shade of red. "Little kitten?" she thought before a small smile was drawn on her cute face as her eyes fell on the object still pressed on her chest to be strong. Getting out of her daze, a distressed look suddenly came on the girl's face as she just noticed a detail. "I didn't even tell him my name." Scene break. As Naruto was walking the streets of Konoha, he could not help but let out a snicker. "Not living your life for others? How hypocritical coming from me, when I've been longing for the village attention ever since I came here." He looked up at the Hokage Tower. When was it that I discarded my promise to Gigi? Then looked even further above to the sculptures portraying the great men of history. How did I forget my goal to follow your legacy? Entering his messy apartment, he did not even mind to eat something and waltzed straight toward his bed. Feeling the fatigue taking over, "If only it was simpler," he muttered before losing consciousness. Scene break. Naruto groggily woke up while the sun had yet to rise. Looking at his room in disorder, books and parchments were splattered all around, reminding him about his stagnation in his project as he grunted before starting his usual morning routine. He was thankful for his fuinjutsu research as he now could take normal showers instead of ice-cold ones using some heat seals. He then went on to eat a breakfast composed of fruits, oatmeal, eggs, and coffee. It was a healthy regime that Kurenai helped him put in place. After that, he proceeded to prepare a very simple rice and meat meal with some vegetables and stock it in his lunchbox, which he sealed in a piece of paper that he stored in his notebook. Putting on his usual clothes and securing the entrance of his home with a security seal, he took off to the Forest of Death. Arriving at his second home in the village, Naruto felt a semblance of serenity invade him as he took position to start his morning training. "Fuin," the boy said after forming a sign with both of his hands. The effect of that action was immediately visible as the blonde was now seen struggling to move even a muscle of his body. "Maybe I wasn't quite ready to add another level on my resistance seal yet. Whatever, I'll just suffer through it," he thought as he began trying to walk, and thankfully, after a few minutes he could finally do a semblance of a jog. After what seemed like an hour, he started doing some basic exercises, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, and sit-ups while perched from a tree branch, only stopping after being satisfied from the congestion and ache he felt in his muscle. That should do it for the physical part, he thought as the first rays of the sun finally started filling the morning sky.
Bunsin no justo.
A deformed, sickly-looking copy of himself was created besides him. Sighing at his apparent failure, he dispelled the clone. "I'm still far from succeeding. I just hope I'll get it right by the end of the year." His determination seemingly not wavering from that, he gathered several fallen leaves, then sat down in a meditation pose, training his chakra control as he was trying to make each leaf stick to his body with his chakra only. He sat in this position for a bit more than an hour until he was interrupted by a thought. Let's try not to be late on the first day of school. He proceeded to get up and casually walk in the direction of the academy. Scene break. Sitting at his usual place, Naruto was reading a fuinjutsu book while trying his best to ignore his environment. He didn't mean to be antisocial. He tried to approach and befriend the people in his class, but the vast majority were distant and cold. It wasn't as bad as the treatment he got from the adult population, but he hypothesized that the parents warned their child about the demon, so he was left sitting alone and far from any person he could corrupt. At least that gave him more time to focus on his research, so he didn't mind. It wasn't anything new for him. There has been a student exchange program between Konoha and Suna this year, so we will have a new student from there. He turned to said girl and asked her to introduce herself. The girl had teal eyes and sandy blonde hair, which was gathered into 4 consecutive pigtails. Her face was defined by very strong and attractive traits that radiated pride and confidence. She was wearing a white robe that stopped above her ankles with a mesh armor underneath, with the last touch being a red ribbon tied to her waist. "My name is Temari. I am the daughter of the Kazekage, and my dream is to become a strong kunoichi. Respect for her skill. I hope we can get along," she confidently declared with a small bow. The young woman seemed content with the attention she was given by her classmates, receiving all sorts of questions about her life as a princess and whatnot. Yet when her eyes fell on a certain blonde boy reading a book seemingly ignoring her, as if her whole existence didn't matter to him, she decided to go and sit beside him. She'll teach him a lesson or two about not disregarding her of all the people. She leaned in closer as if to try and catch a glimpse at whatever the boy was reading. Yet as she was about to see the content of the book, the boy suddenly distanced himself while turning toward her, eyes wide open in shock. "Holy shit, who the fuck are you?" the blonde exclaimed. So, he really wasn't paying attention after all, she thought with a deadpan. Regaining a serious expression, she declared, "If you listened a bit earlier, you would have known that I'm Tamari, daughter of the fourth Kazgake and I." "Wowie, that's very nice," he interrupted with a casual tone, giving her a thumbs up before diving right back to his book. Frozen in place, Tamari could only stare in shock with her mouth wide open. Before she decided she was not going to let this affront slip, she firmly put her hand on his shoulder and spat with an authoritative tone. "And who do you think you are to dismiss me in such fashion? If you don't pull your hand in the next 3 seconds, I can become your worst nightmare," he retorted in a deep tone, not even bothering to look up at her. The menace seemed to work, seeing as the girl flinched a bit while she retrieved her hand. "And besides," he said as he locked his blue eyes with her dark green ones before adding, "the first thing you identified yourself with was your royal lineage. That alone tells me that you're not interesting, although the second thing you said about your person, in this case your dream, was somewhat remarkable. I just can't respect people that rely on their oh-so-noble blood to be respected." "Why, you were listening all along?" she stuttered in disbelief. "Of course I was. We are trained to become ninjas after all, aren't we?" he rhetorically asked before averting his eyes once more into his reading material. Tamari could not believe her eyes. For all her life, she had been seen as nothing more and nothing less than the Princess of Suna. Never did they see her impressive talent as an academy student, her higher-than-average charisma, or her stunning intelligence. Whatever she tried, the princess was never able to escape the shadow of her own name. It was one of the reasons she begged her father to send her on a student exchange program, where maybe she could prove herself to be something more than just the daughter of someone important. And yet, when faced with the challenge of presenting herself, her subconscious didn't even hesitate for a moment before her mouth let out the words that haunted her all her life. Yet, after her whole entourage showered her with attention and praise solely because she was the princess, here she stood, in front of a person that wasn't interested in her and, even worse, didn't respect her for the very reason. Had she already failed her goals? No, her father pulled all the strings he could to give her this chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. Eyes filling with determination, Tamari once again put her hand on the boy's shoulder, forcing him to face her, while lowering the book he was holding with her other hand. And instead of being angered or surprised, the boy just seemed curious. "Then I'm going to prove my being to you. I'll be so great you won't be able to take your eyes off of me," she declared with an unwavering resolve. It was only after she noticed the beginning of a smirk form itself onto the blonde's face that she realized what she had just promised to a total stranger. "I'll be waiting to see that, Haim-chan," he teased as Tamari's face turned bright red, with what he guessed was anger mixed in with embarrassment ***, and Haim in Japanese means princess */. Scene break. Naruto would not admit it to anyone, even less so to the princess, but after a few months he grew impressed by Tamari. She was smart in her academic life, scoring the highest grade in their class, and strong as she won every taijutsu spar they had. He had yet to understand why she always chose him as her sparring partner. She was stunningly beautiful, and contrary to the rigid and formal princess she acted like when people drowned her in attention for the sole sake of gaining favors with the daughter of the Kazekage, she was an open and fun to talk to adolescent girl around him. And upon noticing the change in attitude, he finally understood her. She is exactly like him, trying to escape the shadow of an identity she didn't choose to affirm her own being. Era, it's very unlike you to get distracted in the middle of a fight," he heard a voice say before feeling a hard knuckle connect with the side of his face, making him slightly wince before he threw a frontal kick to disengage from his opponent. But to his dismay, the girl just slightly sidestepped as she locked her arm around his overextended limb, disallowing him to retract it as he found himself trying to stay stable standing on one leg. "Were you hitting on me, Naruto?" she teased confidently as if she was toying with him. Those words, however, struck home as the now embarrassed Naruto couldn't believe the feeling that snuck itself in his heart, yet Naruto didn't have time to reflect as he suddenly found himself looking at the blue sky after the girl swept her leg and tackled him into the ground, feeling the blonde girl get up from him. He saw that smug and victorious expression plastered on her face. Now I know how Anko and Kurinaine feel. You're lucky I only took off one level of my resistance seal, he thought, as she presented her arm to help him get up. Fine, you got me, what do you want this time? He admitted in defeat as he had once again to fulfill one of her wishes as per their agreement. How about you show me around in Konoha? She finally came up with after pondering for a few moments with her hand on her chin. You're telling me that you were in Konoha for the last few months, and nobody volunteered to show you around? He skeptically asked. Some did actually, but I wanted that to be you. Is there a problem with this? She confidently declared, prompting him to blush a bit. All right, your wishes are my command. Haim-chan. He sarcastically bowed to the princess before feeling a hard fist connect with the top of his head. How many times did I tell you not to call me that? Idiot, she spat with hints of frustration. Oh, come on. You already beat me earlier. At least let me have some fun, he dejectedly whined. Whatever. Just meet me at the academy's gate after you finish changing your clothes. It might take some time as I'll have to tend to the multiple fractures you gave me, you violent women, he joked as he held his arm in fake pain. Letting out a small laugh, the blonde girl just shook her head at his antics before leaving to the girl-changing room. I guess that means no afternoon training for today. Letting out a sigh, Naruto formed a sign with his hand as he muttered "Phew," slightly shifting his position as his body got heavier. He looked at the beauty walking off and couldn't help but glance at her swaying hips. That was until she put her hand behind her back and waved her index finger as if to say, "No, no, no, you naughty boy. She is totally doing this on purpose, and she's trying to make me look like the pervert. What a pain." Scene break. After about 15 minutes, a brown-eyed teenage boy with short black hair was approaching the blonde princess that was leaning on a wall close to the academy's gate. I heard you wanted to be shown around the village, Temari-san, he declared. Taken a little aback by what the boy said, Temari regained her composure as she respectfully answered him. I am deeply sorry to inform you that I have no such desires, mister. Keeping his eyes locked with hers for a moment, he suddenly burst out laughing as he said, Okay, I can't do this anymore. It's too weird. It's me, Naruto. Let's get going with that village tour. Temari widened her eyes in surprise before she blushed a bit, embarrassed that she talked to her friend in such a formal way. But surprise quickly turned into anger as she questioned him. Why are you hinged? Are you ashamed of spending time with me? Do you not want other people to see me with you?
No.
It's not like that. It's the opposite, really, he quickly exclaimed. Huh? What the hell are you talking about? She asked in a confused tone with some anger still present before she threatened. Whatever. Just get this henge off before I beat it off of you myself. Did you even consider how would I feel? His eyes shot wide open in realization as he sighed in a dejected manner. Will I ever learn from my mistakes? He then declared after dispelling his transformation. I guess you'll understand quickly enough. The two teenagers spent the rest of the afternoon strolling through the streets of Konoha, and Temari had to admit that it was more fun than she had expected as Naruto showed her places she had never visited before. From the top of one specific part of the village walls where she could gaze at a magnificent endless green plain, to a very relaxing park that very few people frequented. He even sneaked her inside one of the clan compounds. Yet the best place in her opinion was where she was with him right now, on top of the third Hokage head sculpted in the mountain. This is the place I come to when I want some peace, he calmly declared with a serene smile. Peace from the people's glares and insults? He slightly squinted his eyes, but didn't avert his gaze from the horizon. I take it that you've noticed. Why do they hate you so much? She asked him with a serious expression. The boy shrugged his shoulder. They were like that for as far as I can remember. Maybe my parents were traitors to the village? I don't know. I don't care. Not anymore. But it's not fair. You don't deserve to be hated for something you were born with, she exclaimed with anger. Life is not fair. Nobody deserves anything, and we only have what we get. I don't know if I'll ever be able to change their mind, but I'm content knowing my own worth. Doesn't it get lonely? She tentatively asked in a low tone. Does it, Temari? He quickly retorted, now locking his eyes with hers. The blonde girl gasped as the boy called her by her name for the first time. She felt as if the boy sitting beside her understood all of what she had gone through, all the pain that came from being identified by something you don't want to be, the endless battle to show them that the real you exist. Her eyes began to slowly tear up as she looked down to her legs. Yes, she finally managed to painfully answer. You know, you're one of the toughest persons I've came to meet, both physically and mentally. You are way above your peers in terms of intelligence. And even as I hate to see your smug face, you are stronger than I am in my state, and hanging out with you for the past months, I've came to feel many things: friendship, admiration, respect, and even a tad bit of attraction for the strong woman you are. And at last I can finally say that I acknowledge you, Temari, he solemnly declared as tears now fell freely from the beaming girl's face. Although I still don't get why you seeked acknowledgement from a random stranger like me, he casually added with a deadpan, prompting her to burst out laughing, still crying what seemed like tears of joys. They sat like that in a happy yet silent atmosphere for some time as the sun began to set on the village hidden in the leaf. So, what was it exactly that you said about being attracted to me? She tried teasing while blushing herself. Shit, did I really say that? He embarrassingly asked. You totally did, idiot, not giving him any way out of this situation. I guess I did, he sighed in defeat before adding while rubbing the back of his head, to be honest. If it wasn't for the fact that you're only here temporarily, I would have already asked you out, but now it's somewhat awkward. That declaration surprised her for a moment before she buried her mouth behind the legs that she bonds to her body. I also have something for you, you know, she admitted while trying to avert his gaze. Feeling his heart beat faster than usual, Naruto's face was plastered with a happy smile, seeing as the feelings he felt were mutual. Then why don't we call today a date? Prompting her to join him in laughter. I don't think I would want anything that would happen between us to only last, what? 5 months? Man, this year really passed by quickly. In the past, it was really hard for me to come to the academy on a regular basis since it was so boring. But while you were around, I just felt happy to see your face whenever I attended a lesson. Feeling the happy feeling in her chest beat even stronger, she teased him. Really? If I knew you were such a lazy person, I would have come earlier. He let out a snicker before retorting, instead of that, can't you return back home a bit later? Her smile slowly fell into a sad one as she put her hand on top of his. You don't know how much I would love that. Naruto grabbed her hand firmly into his own and told her with hope, maybe we shouldn't worry too much about that. We'll be ninjas, and I'm sure I'll manage to find missions to Suna so that I can visit you from time to time. Shaking her head dejectedly. That won't give us much of an opportunity to be in a relationship, thought. Letting out a resigned sigh, he tried to brighten her up as he said, then perhaps we should stop talking about the future and enjoy the ephemeral present we have? Yes, as long as it lasts, she finally let out, leaning into his shoulders as they both watched the last rays of light disappear. Scene break. Naruto was waiting in front of an apartment door, still blushing from the kiss on the cheek that gave him Temari after he escorted her to the place she lived, still feeling his heartbeat at the warmth her body emitted, feelings he foolishly wished would never fade. I'm coming! A woman's voice was heard from inside the residence. The door opened to reveal Kurenai in her casual home clothes, with a somewhat curious expression on her face. Naruto, we didn't have any tutoring session planned out for today, did we? We didn't, Kurenai. I just wanted to talk with you for a bit. But you're right. I just noticed how late it is. I'll just pass by tomorrow. He was about to turn around and leave, but a hand grabbed him by the arm and pulled him inside, where he was suddenly enclosed in a tight hug from the woman. She seems so happy. Maybe I should visit her more? Go get comfortable in the living room, Naruto. I'll be coming right away with some tea, she told him in a soft tone. Still as sweet as ever. I'm surprised you're not yet married, Kurinaine. Are you still scaring men away with your not-so-gentle genjutsus? He joked, enjoying the embarrassed look on her that never failed to entertain him before he decided to end her misery by moving to the lounge. What he found there, however, wasn't something he was accepting. His eyes fell on a very childish-looking pajama, but it was the person wearing them that surprised him. Like what you see, teased one Mitarashi Anko, still finding ways to make the most innocent nightwear look sexy. Yeah, you're pretty cute. Didn't think I'd ever say that about you. I wonder what people would think about the infamous snake mistress if they saw you like that. Well, you're one hell of a lucky guy, 'cause if it was anyone else I'd make sure it is the very last sight they ever lay their eyes upon. Glad to see you haven't lost your charms. And I'm glad to see you're still an annoying dickhead, kid, she retorted with a sneer. BZZZT, you've lost the rights to call me that the moment I became taller than you, shrimp. You fucker! She got up and tackled him to the carpet, starting a friendly wrestling combat. After a few minutes, Kurinai entered the room with the tea glasses on a tray and sighed, looking at the squabbling children. Stop it now, you two, came the loving, yet authoritative voice of the raven-haired women. All right, Nai-chan/Kurinaine, they said in unison, seemingly calming down as fast as they began fighting. Naruto sat with his back on the couch on which Anko was laying, facing the table across of which sat the red-eyed Kunoichi. They talked for some time about light subjects, asking each other about their routine and work, for example, before Kurinai decided to tackle the reason Naruto came to see her in the first place. So, what did you want to talk with me about, Naruto? Gently asked the red-eyed big sister figure. Pondering for a moment about how to start the conversation, Naruto opened with, so it's been a few months since the beginning of the academic year, and there is this one friend that I made. No way, abruptly interrupted Anko in a tone that conveyed that she was already calling bullshit on his story. That was a low blow, Anko, said Naruto in a fake dejected tone. Yeah, you're right, sorry. I couldn't resist, apologized said woman while rubbing the back of her head. Anyway, as I was saying, I won't tell you his or her name for privacy reasons, but he had some problems with his identity, and more precisely the way people identified him. Kind of like you, Naruto? Kurinai asked the blonde. Yes. Exactly, he admitted before adding. It made me ponder. What exactly made us? Us? What was it that made each one of us different than the other? What made us special? And before you say it, Anko, I am not talking about genetics and whatnot. Well, I wasn't going to say it, jackass, but it's still a valid point. On top of making us look different, perhaps it's our difference in genetics that makes us act and react differently compared to others? Pondered Anko. She wasn't used to the deep conversations she knew Naruto had with her big sister figure, but she could still be smart and mature when needed. As for me, I adhere to the idea that we are but the sum of our choices. We are all subject to completely different questions in the span of our lives, and the way we answer those questions determine our character. That's how a pair of twins can sometimes have totally different personalities, declared Kurinai with a confident smile. She was already beginning to enjoy this conversation with her two favorite persons. And yet, people that experience relatively similar hardships can turn out to be totally different from one another. I have never been of the spiritual kind, but for some reason, I've always felt as if our soul was painted a color, and it gets tainted by other people's being as we interact with them, as to, in the end, form a dye that is solely unique to us, he stated while relaxing his head, not minding the physical contact he made with Anko's legs. Both women were surprised at the idea as they had never heard it before. Was the boy coming with those thoughts on his own? The group went on back and forth. One person would layer out some argument while the other two added their input or shared a counter-argument when they didn't agree with what was said. That was until Anko declared in a frustrated manner, we could argue until morning and still not find any concrete answer. At least, the best we can agree on is that the complexity of one's personality is just the collection of small and simple actions, events or choices that happens in one's life. Naruto could only nod his head slowly in agreement. After all, every complex entity or phenomenon in nature could be divided into multiple small and simple parts. And it was at this moment that it hit him. Naruto abruptly opened his eyes wide open and suddenly got up from his sitting position. He gave both women a glance each as he hurriedly said, You both are incredible people, and I love you two so much. Sorry, but I have to go. I think I found something huge." He didn't leave them any time to protest as he blitzed through the corridor out of the apartment, leaving two very blushing and confused women at his declaration. They both knew he didn't mean it in a romantic way, but it still warmed their heart considerably. That night, Naruto's few neighbors felt chills down their spine as they heard sporadic, yet very distinct evil-sounding laughs coming from the demon's residence. Chapter 6. Dreams. There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve: the fear of failure. Paulo Coelho, the alchemist. There are two kinds of pains for the heart: the pain of not having anyone to love, and the pain of having a loved one disappear. Naruto thought that the worst part of his life, when he was still stuck alone in the orphanage, was well behind him, that he would never have to feel the same kind of suffering again. And yet here he was, at the gates of his village, staring at the disappearing figure of the person that made him experience love for the first time. They had promised each other not to cry, and he stood strong as he hugged her for the last time, not knowing when will they ever see each other again, if ever. So what was this warm liquid coming out of his eyes? For most people, failing their academic year because they could not perform a jutsu would ruin their mood for a long time. But for Naruto, this was one of the best years of his life. Thanks to the surge of inspiration he had after the discussion with Anko and Kurenai, he had made incredible breakthrough on his Fuinjutsu studies. He now felt confident in saying he was of intermediate level in the field. However, it was not his advancements in the art that made this year special. It was the blonde-haired girl, now turned kunoichi, that brightened his life. After the fateful day they had their conversation on top of the mountain. They began hanging out nearly every time they could. Even if it meant he had less opportunities to train his body and his chakra control, he still loved it more than any other activity he did. Their attraction for one another very rapidly turned into blossoming love as the time went by. But still, both parties agreed to not have anything serious between them, as they knew it would then become a time bomb. But no amount of precaution could save them from the pain of saying goodbye. Wiping away his tears, Naruto turned to the village as he began walking to nowhere in particular. "But life keeps on," he mutters. Scene break. "You better make this worth my time," grunted Anko, but her small smile betrayed her as she was sitting beside Naruto in his classroom. "Did I ever disappoint you?" he cheerfully asked, his excitement apparent in his posture. "Nah, but I'll probably have to pay a drink for the guy I asked to cover for me," she reluctantly answered. "Should just shut up and enjoy the spectacle." He gleefully tried to silence her as people started entering the classroom. It was a few weeks into his last year in the academy, and unlike all the classmates he had all the previous years, he had found a group of students he could talk to and befriend. Maybe it was because they were members of prominent clans? Naruto didn't care. He couldn't help himself but get close to most of them very quickly. Sure, there were some that he liked more than others, but they were all special and interesting in their own way. He was also very happy to see the young Hyuga girl, who he now knows is named Hinata. He met at the park, although for some reasons, she seemed way happier than he was as she tried to talk to him whenever she had the opportunity to do it. He was impressed by the way she seemed more confident than when they had first met. She sure had grown in 3 years, and not only in personality, as her long dark hair now framed a body that matured faster than her peers. "Anko-senpai, may I ask what you are doing in my humble classroom?" inquired a curious teacher. "Don't mind me, Irika. I won't stay for long," she casually answered. "Anyway, does anybody know why your classmates are late today?" added the brown-haired Chunin. "Maybe they were lost in the road of life, sensei. I'm sure they will come, eventually," came the answer from a very cheerful Naruto. Suddenly a scream could be heard from the corridor, and with it, the sound of a very angry group of people arriving. Naruto. As they opened the door, the whole class was left gape-mouthed at the sight they were presented with. The Nara hair could only be described as aloof. He literally had his head in the clouds most of the time, and after trying to imitate him for fun, Naruto had to admit he enjoyed the calming view of the clouds slowly drifting in the blue sky. It gave him a sense or peace he only rarely got the occasion to enjoy. But one thing he could not emulate was the counterproductive amount of laziness the young boy displayed on a daily basis. And yet, today, Shikamaru Nara had eyes wide open and hands shaking from excitement. He was on the verge of jumping in place as he could not stop calling the blonde some very well-thought insults as the former was trying to conceal a toothy grin. Beside him stood someone that Naruto found to be very kind and calm, someone you could stay besides in silence for long periods of time without it becoming awkward. Maybe that is how he got to befriend the Nara hair. That is, if you don't mind the constant sound of chips crunching, the boy had the face of Choji Akimichi, yet he had a lean and muscular body not too different from that of a model, but as usual, the only thing he was focused on was his food, although it looked a bit different from the usual stuff he ate. Attracting an equal amount of attention from the class girls as his predecessor, it was a boy with a black leather jacket with spikes on its shoulders and pitch-black aviator sunglasses that went well with his straight long brown hair. Most people didn't recognize him, but a few knew it was Shino Aburame, and the boy was a total mystery to the Uzumaki. He only talked when absolutely necessary and never showed any physical feature as his whole body was mysteriously hidden under layers of clothing on normal days, that is. Struggling behind him was a very frustrated Kiba Inuzuka. Naruto had to admit he liked the boy. He had the same wild than him. He always seemed to find a way to lit up Naruto's competitive spirit whenever they did something together. But the usually confident-looking Inuzuka was now struggling to get a very horny adult dog that was pounding him off of his back. After that came the infamous duo. Saku Haruno had ear and nose accessories that made him look like a pig, the looks complemented by a small tail coming from his lower back. If Naruto ever wanted to get advice on relationships, he would directly go to the red-haired boy, as he doubted there was a girl in his class he hadn't gone out with. That is, except the person he seemed to long for the most, a certain Uchiha. But the playboy seemed confident enough in his charms that he never stopped trying his luck with her. Across him stood Ino Yamanaka, who had plaster on her forehead making it look much bigger. If she wasn't fighting with her ex, the girl with long silky blonde hair could be seen having a very haughty and rich girl attitude that Naruto could not hide his distaste toward. The majority of people were amazed that they still used the same insult against each other while ironically embodying that same thing. Last but not least of the group was Cheyenne Uchiha. She had long dark hair that had a taint of blue. They were attached in a ponytail while still leaving a patch blocking parts of her forehead. She was wearing a simple blue shirt under a black jacket and pants of the same color. While the girl was considered a beauty on normal days, she now was absolutely stunning as she was wearing some kind of emo makeup with bright red lipstick and purple marks around her eyes that stood out on a paler than usual oval face. Out of all the persons he had pranked that day, Cheyenne was the only person Naruto hoped wouldn't mind the jokes, as he genuinely wanted to cheer up the onyx eyes that always displayed a sea of hatred. One that only a few could notice was hiding a hint of sadness, feelings Naruto could discern, but not understand. They all had a note on their back noting their most notable sin, as Naruto would say. They were, in order: sloth, gluttony, melancholy, pride, lust, avarice, and finally wrath. Without exception, everyone in the room stood silent, shocked, all but a very infamous duo in the back laughing like their life depended on it. "You fucking madman. I can't believe you did that. Oh my god. I'm gonna die," managed to say Anko while short of breath from laughing. She nearly fell from her seat as she was struggling to keep herself sitting straight. "Naruto," scrammed Shikamaru as the whole group started approaching him. "Care to explain yourself, Dobe?" warned the Uchiha in a low tone. "It hurts me to see that you all suspect me so much. Does our friendship mean nothing to you?" he whined with fake tears in his eyes. "Bullshit. You're the only person in our group not to be affected," barked Kiba. "Oh really?" he asked while pointing out to his bright, horrendous orange jumpsuit as he turned around for them to see a note plastered on his back reading "Vanity." "Then who fucking dared to stick those things onto my beautiful face?" demanded a fuming Saku. Anko was having the laugh of her life as her blonde friend played the group against each other, while even a toddler could understand that Naruto was the culprit. "Will you shut up and take your seat?" scrammed the annoyed Irika, as he had lost enough time on his course as it was. Scene break. "I want to go out with you." Hinata changed a lot in the past 2 years, especially after she met with a certain blonde man, a man who she had started developing a crush on the moment they met, but it was still a surprise for her to sound so confident. "You've grown bold," came the voice of an amused Naruto as he added, "and why exactly would you want to date with me?" "Ano." I never got the chance to thank you for what you did a few years ago, she argued, still somewhat shyly. That sounds fair. Okay? He accepted with a smile. Really? You're accepting? She exclaimed, clearly happy from his answer. How exactly could I refuse such an offer coming from someone as cute as you? He teased as he enjoyed seeing the hint of red coming to the Hyuga's face before adding, Do you have anything particular in mind, little kitten? The surname he gave her once again didn't fail to make her feel butterflies in her stomach as she struggled to answer him. And no, I didn't think of anything. I didn't think I'd get this far, to be honest. Maybe a restaurant? Hinata, we will do something you want to do, not something you think would be appropriate, he firmly stated. Something I want to do? She pondered for a moment before she gathered her strength as she met his gaze, confidently declaring, I want to go outside the village. That confident display was soon to be replaced by her usual shyness thought, but it was still a very good showing. But the clan would never accept that, she admitted in defeat, lowering her head as her idea seemed more and more unrealistic. She felt a finger flickering her on the head, Itai. Before she looked up to a bright smile plastered on the boy she came to have a crush on. Don't give up so easily on the things you want, little kitten, he declared before adding with a grin. I think I have a plan. Scene break. It was early in the morning and Hinata had just left her compound to go to school. Once she was far enough, she made sure that nobody was watching her before she held her fingers in a sign. Bunshin no Jutsu. Instantly, a perfect copy of herself was created. Okay, now I just have to stick this piece of paper on the clone, she thought before she did exactly that. Yet nothing happened, finding it weird that Naruto told her to do something useless, unless she activated her Byakugan. Suffice to say, she wasn't expecting what she saw. Her clone had a chakra system, so that was his idea. Now the clone is undistinguishable from me, she thought with excitement. Scene break. Hinata was standing on a branch of a tree, at the place they had agreed they would meet in to begin their date. I take it that my little trick worked? Came a voice from behind her. Yes, it was as if that clone had chakra of its own. How did you manage to do this? Inquired Hinata. There is so much that can be done with seals, much more than what people think, he replied in a mysterious manner before adding, but we're not here to discuss seals, are we? I've wanted to show you a place, but it's a bit far if we were to walk there normally, he stated. It's okay, Naruto-san. I'm already very happy I can see the outside world thanks to you, she declared. You might be satisfied, but I'm not, he retorted with a grin before adding. Now I know it might sound bizarre, but I want you to get on my back. I can take us there pretty quickly if I'm running as fast as I can. Oh, on your back? She was taken aback by the proposition. Yes, I promise it will be worth it. Trust me, Hinata, he pleaded. If you're so sure, then I can try. She finally ceded, internally thought she was excited to be so intimate with her crush. As she climbed on his back with her legs interlocked on his stomach, she saw him raise his hand in a sign before saying Kai. She didn't really understand what the blonde did, but he seemed to carry her much easier after muttering those words. Ladies and gentlemen, the Uzumaki special line will take off in a few seconds. Please hang on tightly to your seats, and don't forget to enjoy the view, an amused Naruto said. What do you, Maya? Hinata was cut off by the gust of wind hitting her face. At first it was somewhat uncomfortable, but after a few moments, she found it in her to open her eyes and gaze at the surrounding. The beauty of a world she had never seen was flying past her as each view was replaced by another. After a few hours and some breaks, they had reached a place that was unlike any Hinata had seen on their way. The green meadow was replaced by a golden carpet of sand, ever fighting the blue water that systematically rose and fell, water that stretched as far as the eye could see, masking what lies behind the horizon. The sound of the waves crashing against the sandy beach filled her being a sea of serenity as she had yet to utter a word to her companion, the man that this place reminded her the most of. I'm glad you seem to like it as much as I did the first time I came here, declared Naruto. The only answer he got was a nod from the hypnotized-looking girl that had already taken a seat beside him. A speck of sadness traversed his eyes. Her clan compound must have been all she knew of the world, She had to endure what I did for so long. After relaxing in silence with the black-haired girl for a few minutes, he felt the inspiration to quote one of his life idols. "The world is vast and boundless, Hinata," he declared before adding a comment of his own, "and we are but a grain of sand when compared to it. The universe was here before we came to be, and it will live on long after we turn back to dust. Thinking about this, I've always felt as if our petty goals and ambitions are insignificant in the great schemes of things." He finished with a dejected sigh. He was, however, surprised when he felt confident eyes looking at him as Hinata stated her disagreement. "The universe might not change from our actions, but the lives and feelings of an enormous amount of people can be affected by our dreams. That's why I will always hold on to them, no matter what." Impressed by her resolve, he asked her in a curious tone, "And what would those grandiose dreams be about, little kitten?" After being slightly taken aback, Hinata was now looking at the far horizon. Her posture didn't betray any lack of confidence as she declared, "For many generations, our clan has been divided in two parts, the main house, which purpose is to run the affairs of the clan and lead it, and the branch house, the members of which are cursed with a seal that destroys the Byakugan if its user perish. The seal that was put on their forehead by members of the main house at birth allows them to inflict immense amount of pain and even death as cells of their brain gets destroyed one by one. This implicitly forces them to be obedient to the main house and be slaves in all but name." Having never had a family, Naruto could only feel disgust and anger. "How can you treat your own blood like that? This is wrong on so many levels," he spat before advising her to follow his ideals. "You should take as much distance from them as you can and live your own life. Maybe this way you can be free." Shaking her head, the girl's resolve didn't flinch. "No, I won't run away, despite all of their flaws. I care too much for them to do so. Instead, I will face my clan problems head-on and change it from its foundation when the time will come for me to lead it," she solemnly proclaimed. This declaration left the blonde in a weird position. He was impressed and inspired by her goals and determination to achieve them, and yet they were contrary to the way he has lived his whole life. "Am I a coward for not facing the village like she does her clan?" He snickered. "Who thought that Hinata of all people would have more gut than me? Lead it." Naruto paused for a second as his brain processed the new information before his eyes shot open at what was implied with her words. "Wait, you're telling me I just kidnapped the Hyuga heiress?" muttered the blonde in a low tone filled with fear. Hinata shifted uncomfortably in her position as she shyly apologized. "I'm sorry, Naruto-san. I should have told you about this beforehand. It was all his fault after all. He rightly guessed that his classmates were the respective heirs to their clan, but he just did not think that the shy girl that would not hurt a fly was the heir to the most powerful clan in the village. How foolish of him." "Bah! There is no way they find out about this anyway. I'm confident in my Fuinjutsu skills," he declared confidently, trying to hide the fear he felt. After a few rounds of laughs, they settled in a calm atmosphere, chatting like they usually did until the conversation fell into a comfortable silence, as one could only hear the soothing song of the waves, a mood that for some reason gave Hinata the courage she needed to say the things she wanted to say for so long. "You know, Naruto," she started, attracting the blonde's attention. "I've always looked up to you. You showed me that being strong doesn't mean you have to give up on your kindness. You showed me that one can still be happy even if the world doesn't want you to be. I've always been inspired by you since that day in the park, and finding you again in my class, I discovered I had started to develop feelings for you." She finished with a blush while looking straight ahead, not wanting to meet his gaze. "Feelings, huh?" Naruto finally answered after being shocked. He paused for a moment before continuing. "Love shouldn't be something that stems from someone getting saved by another. A relationship shouldn't be built on a hero-princess structure. It should be a feeling that you genuinely appreciate the person with all his quirks and shortcomings. Yet as of right now, I can only think that you see me as this perfect stronger-than-life figure, a person that, as much as it irks me to admit, I'm not."